Yes, we are.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I'd like to reconvene and re-enter our open session and ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Is there any public comment from the board?
Sure, I'll start. I just wanted to say thank you for your service, Jamie, because I know in government sometimes there's people on both sides of things, but we all put in the same amount of time and we all care the same amount. And so even when there's people that, you know, maybe we've clashed and whatnot, it's the same dedication and the same time. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree. I would have another public comment. It is a great honor to serve Lunenburg as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I take this responsibility very seriously. The Lunenburg Town Charter states, "The administration of all the fiscal, prudential, and municipal affairs of the town shall be vested in an executive branch headed by a select board. The executive powers of the town shall be vested in the select board, which shall be deemed to be the chief executive office of the town, and shall have all the executive powers it is possible for a select board to have and to exercise." Clearly, the buck stops here. It is not only our right, but our responsibility to provide input on matters of substance to the town. The town manager reports to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen hires the town manager and is charged with annually reviewing her. It is a very difficult task. I believe it is our responsibility to assess what the town manager is doing well as to point out where there is opportunity for growth. I support the town manager each and every day through my actions. I am the town rep to the Montezut Area Regional Transit Board. When I attend monthly meetings, attendees include the mayors of Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, as well as town managers for Air, Harvard, and other MARC communities. I'm happy to take on this responsibility, as I know Lunenburg is a small town with a tight budget and depends on its volunteers to help run the town. If I can serve on the MARC board, that's one less monthly meeting the town manager needs to fit in. Lunenburg's also a member of the 30 Community Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition. When attending those monthly meetings, other members in attendance include town managers, DPW directors, conservation agents, town engineers, and town planners. Again, if I can help the town and the town manager by taking on this responsibility, I am happy to provide this support. No other towns in either of these groups have BOS members serving on these boards. I support the town manager by giving of my time. I support the town manager's actions whenever possible. I was very impressed that she moved so quickly to improve the senior tax work-off program. I appreciate that the BOS deferred the discussion of the overview document for the town manager's evaluation, as it took time to digest the 22 pages. To conduct the review, we each had available to us, in addition to the chair's document, our own evaluations of the town manager and the town manager's self-evaluation. In my review of the composite prepared by our chair, I noted that almost 2/3 of the document was taken directly from the town manager's self-evaluation, essentially word for word. I feel the town manager's self-evaluation should not be cut and pasted into the final BOS consensus document. This is a dangerous precedent to set. I will ask for a discussion on this point during this agenda item.
Thank you. Any other comment from the board?
The I've said it already, Jamie, but I want to thank you again for your service here. And I can say it 100 times and it won't be enough, but I'm going to miss having you sitting next to me.
Thank you.
Can I also? So thank you, Jamie, for serving the town for the last 6 years as a selectman on the Building Reuse Committee, the Planning Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, the Charter Review Committee, the Finance Committee Appointing Committee, the Cable Advisory Committee, and the Town Manager Screening Committee. You were one of the first people I met in Lunenburg when I interviewed for the position in 2016, as you were a member of the Screening Committee. Since then, I have seen firsthand how Lunenburg has benefited from your service to the town. Your prior work experience in property management has guided the idea that we cannot continue to be in this status quo situation with our town buildings. As chairman, it can be difficult to both run a meeting and be a participant in thoughtful discussion simultaneously, but you've successfully done both. It has been my privilege to work with you for the last 2.5 years, and I will truly miss working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment from the public? Please.
Tom Alonzo, 284 Lancaster Avenue. So I have 3 things, but most important. 6 years ago, before you ran, Jamie, I didn't know who you were. And I was introduced to you during your campaign. And since then, I've had the pleasure of voting for you, working with you, serving as a Board of Selectmen member with you for 4 years, and seeing firsthand, obviously, all the service that you gave to the town, a clear voice. We didn't always agree, as people don't, but most of the time we agreed. But I never doubted for one moment that you had the best interest of the town in mind. Your energy was obviously almost limitless, given the list of committees that town managers listed that you were on. I served with you on many of them. I remember the lonely days at the volunteer booth that we shared, trying to corral people into working, and hopefully we'll get you to continue to help us with that. It was great working with you. I'm sorry that I won't have the opportunity to do that going forward. But the one thing that certainly is clear is your dedication to the town, your energy, and you did it all with really the utmost integrity, which is more than I think it could be said of, or the ultimate that can be said of anybody serving. So it'd be sad to see you go. Hopefully we'll get you involved. I know people will be calling you. I've gotten that experience myself, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. And again, thank you very much for your service as a Board of Selectmen member and chair for many years. Item 2, I wanted to thank the Lunenburg Library and Helen Obermeyer Simmons for an excellent presentation about the William and Sandra Lane collection that she gave at the library on Sunday. It really, I knew about the Lane collection. I've been to the MFA, I've been to the wing and everything, but to have it hit home as an art major myself by education, I was really not even prepared then for the impact and the caliber of work and the caliber of artists that were represented by that collection, many of whom came to spend time here. And while I loved the whole presentation, partly being the weather, I was a little bit dismayed that there was only about 25 people there. Not that that's unusual for an event, but because of the caliber, I was hoping we get more. And I think maybe that not enough people in town know the historical significance of that collection and of the people behind it who did the collecting. And I hope it doesn't get to the point like it did with the Jones House with Luther Burbank, that we recognize that. And I actually encouraged Helen, and I encouraged Mr. Massey, of course, who lives there now, to engage with the Historical Society and the Historical Commission to try to get some state or national recognition as a historic site. Because the people that visited there and whose work they represented, the likes of Alfred Stieglitz and Ansel Adams and Edward Weston, among some of the photographers, and then all the painters, George O'Keeffe among them, is really astounding. And I think people in Lunenburg and the region should be incredibly aware of that kind of gem that existed here and pay more attention to it. So I just wanted to thank them for that. And lastly, I just want to say that Saturday is Election Day, and regardless of regardless of who you vote for or anything, I encourage people to go and vote, have a voice, vote for somebody, vote against somebody, vote just a blank just to say you were there if you don't like people, but please go and vote. It really is an important message, and one of the few times you get to say things throughout the campaign, and even a blank ballot says something, because those are all counted and those are all enumerated. So please, I hope to see a big turnout at the polls.
And the election hours are,
7 to 5.
okay.
This Saturday at TC Passios.
And also for the lane collection, maybe they'll do an encore presentation. I know people who wanted to go, but it was Mother's Day, and there was a whole host of commitments people had that day dealing with moms.
It was Mother's Day, and it was raining. So I would encourage you to let the people who put that on, let Muir, the library director, know, let Helen know. I'm sure she was very enthusiastic, and again, she's an art instructor herself at Fitchburg State College, now university, for many years. I think she would love to hear that.
Yeah,
I
my
think she
mother
would love
had
to do
wanted
it.
to go, but she was cooking for us, so I don't know.
I'm sure they would love to do it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Please, sir.
Good evening. My name's Paul Lurie. I live at 63 Pratt Street in Lunenburg. And I'm really concerned about the rocks in the road at Pleasant Street and Mass Ave. It's been going on years now. Every time there's a heavy rain, you can clearly see where the rocks come from. If, let's say, this is Mass Ave, you're Mass Ave, I'm Pleasant Street. It comes from a building right here because they have all these rocks sitting there loose, and it comes out. I've spoken to DPW. They've at times come out and clean it up at the taxpayer's expense for what I assume is a privately owned building. The police don't have much to say about it. I don't know what they really can do about it. But I just don't, it's dangerous. It's particularly dangerous to motorcycles. It's dangerous to bicycles. And it could be, if you're turning at the right point, it could be dangerous in general because cars will kick up the rocks. So that's my concern. And I mean, there's a few ways of easy fixes, and I actually don't quite understand why this still goes on.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. We'll look into that.
Okay, any response?
It's the first I've heard. We'll look into it.
Okay.
Well, it's a stormwater issue, clearly, so
No, I don't think, well, yeah, stormwater in the sense that it's,
heavy rain.
but if these rocks were like on my property and they washed out, on the Pratt Street, I mean, it's just not right, is what I'm saying. And I don't think it's right that the DPW should have to go and clean it up either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We decided to come together because we're representing the same cause.
I'm Susan Doherty. I'm the director at the Lunenburg Council on Aging. And just on behalf of the Senior Center, we want to thank you, Jamie. You've been a great role model. You've taken over the Memorial Day ceremonies and led the way, and it's getting better and better every year. You come to our meetings at the Council on Aging. We just want to thank you a lot, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
In the future.
Jane Rabbit, 314 Townsend Harbor Road, and thank you also for your service. We do enjoy having you there. I'm here representing both the Council on Aging and also the Action Team to make Lunenburg a dementia-friendly community, and we're in the process of doing that now, and I just wanted to announce that next Monday, May 20th, from 6 to 7:30 at the library, we're having an informational session for anybody in the town that just wants to hear more about it and where we've come and how far we've come really toward making that happen. So again, May 20th, 6 to 7:30, and there'll be refreshments. And I think Hank's going to be there too, is he?
Hank, the therapy dog, of course. You have to have a celebrity there.
So, anyway. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So would you just tell us the time and place of the Memorial Day while you're here?
Memorial Day celebration is on Memorial Day, on the Monday, which is, I believe, the 27th, at 10 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park. And following right afterwards, there'll be coffee hour at the Senior Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Tran.
members of the
Welcome.
board. Thank you very much for having us here tonight with you. We're not here on official business. Instead, we're here to celebrate a very special occasion. And word has it that the chairman is not seeking re-election, and that rather he is seeking retirement from this board. And on that note, the reason why we're here today is to celebrate your retirement and to present you with two very special citations from the State Senate as well as the House of Representatives. And I would take this opportunity to read you the Senate citation, and then my colleague here will read the citation from the House of Representatives. The citation says, "The Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate, official citation be known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to you, Mr. Chairman Jamie Toll, in recognition of your contributions and dedication to the town of Lunenburg during your service on the Board of Selectmen from 2013 to 2019. 6 years. Wow, congratulations. You survived. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success. Signed by our Senate President, Karen E. Spilka, signed by myself, and offer you this citation on today's date, May 14th, 2019. Congratulations.
Thank you, Senator.
Good evening, I'm Josh Padarian from Representative Benson's office, and I want you to hopefully accept the representative's regrets that she can't attend. I know she really appreciates all of that you've done for the town of Lunenburg. I have not lived in Lunenburg. I've gone to high school in Lunenburg, but I've never lived in Lunenburg, so I can't speak to the things that you've done. But my time with the representative, I can absolutely speak to how great of a partner that you've been and how much of an impact you've had on the town of Lunenburg, so I thank you for that. And I know the representative wanted to be here, but, Boston calls. So, I will spare you in some way the details, but in recognition of your 6 years of dedicated service to the town of Lunenburg, Board of Selectmen, the entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. So thank you very much. I appreciate your service and appreciate you being such a great partner.
Thank you.
Of course.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Well, thank you all. Whoops.
And it wouldn't be, oh,
Thank you so much. Do I have to leave these? Yeah.
They're you.
They're so many. They're not even Joe. I can't get away with it. All right, let's get down to business. Our first appointment is 705, an entertainment license for the Lunenburg Arts Festival by the Cultural Council.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Laura Brzozowski, 21 Francis Ave. I'm with the Lunenburg Cultural Council and planning the Lunenburg Arts Festival. And I'm here to ask for an entertainment license, and I'm here to ask you to waive the fee for the entertainment license because it's a town event. Okay, so, yep. It is June Saturday, June 8th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The artists begin loading in at 8 a.m. And we tell them they have to be gone by 4:30, but last year they were actually gone exactly. The clock struck 4 and they were all gone. So hopefully they'll be out by then. And our rain date is June 9th, so we've also applied for the state Sunday entertainment license as well. So yeah, this is our overall site plan. The do not enter signs are where we'll be blocking off the road. We've talked with Jack about that. We are using the Pasio's bathrooms, parking at the middle high school. And we haven't finalized exactly where each booth is going, but that is the rough idea of where they will be.
Any questions or comments?
I don't think so. I mean, event licensing has been something we've talked a lot about, and this falls into the one of 4 categories, which is a public event on public property, which is one of the sort of standard ones in terms of discussions. So I don't think I have any questions other than thank you, because I think everybody's looking for events like this. Yeah, June 8th, please come.
I think the event was fantastic last year. Are there any differences that you want to point out?
So this year, we're going to be using the bathrooms at TC Pasio's instead of the senior center. We're going to be changing the booth configuration slightly. We have about 10, maybe 7 to 10 more booths this year than we did last year. And the food is going to be, we have 2 food trucks coming. So it'll be a little bit different. And we have 2 entertainment stages this year. So it'll be every other. While one is setting up, the other stage will be going.
Great. Make a motion to approve the entertainment license for the Lunenburg Arts Festival from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on June 8th with the rain date of June 9th.
Second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion?
Sure, just to throw in there, since we did the hours of 10 to 3, that they would be on site from 8 to potentially 4:30. I don't know if we want to say that just to be safe, since they need that time to prep and finish. I don't.
Can you waive the fee?
Oh,
That's right. I'd amend the first motion to start time at 8 o'clock for your setup, and also waive the fee.
Second.
Amend the second? Yes. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good luck with
Thanks so
that.
much.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, look at 7. We talked about having you as an earlier appointment. So here we are. Wowie.
Our 7:10 appointment, and I apologize, and I do apologize for last week, is our quarterly update.
Brief quarterly update, very brief. Usually by the time I present this to you guys, it's old news, so, and it is kind of old. But I will just give you a brief summary of where the revenues and expenditures were at the end of the third quarter of 2019, which ended March 31st. At that point in time, we were 3/4 of a way through the fiscal year, and we had collected 76.76% of our estimated revenues. So everything was on target and at where we expected it to be at this point in time. A couple of the highlights on the revenue side would be that we have collected 81% of our local receipt estimates, or $2,438,144. And within that grouping, we have several categories that are above the 75% point at the close of March 31st. A couple of those are our fees. We had collected 84% of that estimate. Departmental revenue, we have collected 89% of that estimate. Meals tax, we've collected 79% of that estimate. and motor vehicle excise, which was billed in February for the first big commitment of 2019 and due in that quarter. We've collected 89% of that estimate, and investment income, we've actually collected 109% of the estimate. We do have a few categories that are running slightly below target, but I would anticipate that in the next quarter, we will make up those differences, and those are fines and forfeits, which we've collected 55% of the estimate, and departmental revenue, which is also at 56%. Taxes, personal property taxes and real estate taxes, we've collected 75% of the estimate at this point in time, and state aid also is at 75%. So for the most part, all our revenues are on target, and I would expect to at least in the next quarter collect what we had estimated. On the expenditure side, between what's been expended and encumbered to date, we've spent 70% of our budget, and there were a few things to note at the close of the third quarter, which for the most part have been taken care of since the town meeting that we had a few weeks ago. One of those was elections. There was an overage of $2,053, but we had received some state funds that eliminated that deficit. One of the other things that was taken care of at the town meeting was snow removal, and at the time that these reports were generated, the deficit for that account was $53,777. We did do a supplemental appropriation at the town meeting to eliminate that deficit, so we were able to fully cover that deficit through existing appropriations. And the third one was about $15,600 was spent for a repair on engine 4 out of the fire's vehicle maintenance, and that was supplemented at the town meeting as well. So at the time that these reports were generated, those were the three budgets that were facing some difficulty. All of those deficits have been eliminated through appropriations or receipts of funds, and all the other expenditure accounts are at or where they should be at this point in time. So I would anticipate at the close of this fiscal year that we'll once again have a successful year and be able to cover everything, and hopefully we'll have free cash somewhat similar to what was certified last year.
Sounds like good news.
It's all good news. We are having a really good year, so.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
7:27.
Thank you, Karen. I apologize for last week.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
We don't have any interviews, appointments, or reappointments?
No, none.
Okay, so our main item of old business is to pick up where we left off last week on the town manager performance review. And we did go through a draft composite, and I invite the board to comment on that document.
Well, as I mentioned, I was pretty surprised that 2/3 of the supposed BOS consensus document consists of the town manager's self-evaluation. And I would ask that those parts be removed from the evaluation.
Well, oh, Jamie, jump in if I'm wrong here, but you touched on it last time. I mean, a lot of this is going over the goals, which the town manager's narrative accurately highlights those goals and kind of gives a factual statement of where we are. So it's, I mean, he could reword it all he wants to, but it's still going to say the same thing, that these are the goals and this is where we are. I don't think it's something you can't really dispute, unless you want to dispute that we haven't achieved those things.
I just think it's inappropriate for the town manager's self-evaluation to be embedded in the Board of Selectmen composite consensus document for rating the town manager. I think it has no place.
Well, let me tell you the process I used, and you can disagree with the process, but as Mr. McQuaid just alluded to, what I tried to do is for each of the goals, number one, and then the part two for each of the reactions to the 10 characteristics, I included factual statements that were based on what the town manager reported in her self-evaluation. Now, if we disagree that those factual things happened, I think that's basis for a good discussion right now. But in fact, if you'll look at the composite, the objective was to state the accomplishments as fact, if you will, and then put in quotes and I thought I did most, if not all, comments by the board about or descriptive of how the manager accomplished those activities. So not only do I think it's appropriate, I think it's the core of the document.
Well, that's kind of the problem, that the core of the document is the town manager's self-evaluation.
Of what was accomplished.
I mean, to me, like I said before, I think it's a factual statement of where we are. I don't see it as portrayed in a certain lens, saying this was good or bad. It's just a statement of this is where we are, this is what happened. And if you want to dispute any of those things, be happy to talk about it. But I think it's a good way to fill out this report and give a good status update.
I would just, once I was listening to Selectmen's comments, I just reread the first page, the policy and the purpose, and then the procedure. And really, what she stated, in fact, that in the 22 pages, a lot of the content comes from a self-evaluation. It really doesn't match the intent put out in the procedure, like item 4 says this document represents the composite ratings from individual reviews and represents the consensus overview document. So it does seem like it would be more well-suited to have been the input of the 4 of us than the input of the town manager themselves evaluating themselves.
Especially when you look at, I looked at the 10 individual, the ratings for the 10 sections. 2/3 of the words in that section are the town managers. 1/3 of the words are from the rest of the board.
But do you disagree with the substance of that? He can rewrite it all day, but
I disagree. I disagree with the procedure. I disagree with the substance in some cases. If we want to go through every one of them, line by line, I just think it's inappropriate and should not be included. I noticed that on some items where Board of Selectmen members wanted to mention something that that came out of the town manager's self-evaluation, they stated, as stated in the town manager's self-evaluation, blah. This doesn't say that at all. This just cuts and pastes the town manager's self-evaluation and embeds it as though that's the consensus document. I just think it's inappropriate. I think it's egregious.
But do they not represent the activities that were accomplished?
I guess in many parts they do. But, do you want to go through it line by line?
Yes, if you have
All
an
right.
objection, I would.
I'm still not planning on signing it with these embedded.
Well, what do you suggest is the first item that we should discuss?
Well, let's look, increase public outreach and improve public relations. Here's one accomplishment. The charter bylaws and important documents buttons were moved to the top of the main page, and the home page middle buttons were changed to town calendar and town meetings and town finances. does that accomplishment raise to the level of being included in exceeds expectation work?
Well, it shows that it's constantly being analytical of what was put out there and didn't just leave it there. She responded to feedback and corrected it.
It just seems...
In defending the process, I mean, I think what it says is what the town manager did. Then it gives all four of us the opportunity to say whether that activity, in your opinion, represents a goal that was completed, in progress, or not undertaken.
I have a question, because this is my first year doing it. How many pages was the evaluation last year, once it was compiled?
I have no idea.
Does anybody
It
recall?
was long.
Okay.
I felt like it's about the same to me.
Because that's one thing I felt after last week, was that compiling something and having one product at 22 pages feels tremendously large. And now that Selectman Luck points out that indeed a lot of this content is redundant because it's a self-evaluation put in what is supposed to be our evaluation, if you took that out, it would probably condense it to truly have been our evaluation.
Would have been 1/3 of the words. I don't think a consensus document says, all members felt that this goal was still in progress, with 2 members feeling it was at least partially completed. I think you could stop with all members felt that this goal was in progress.
And the two people who think that it was partially completed are left out.
Excuse me?
Then the 2 members feeling that it was partially completed are left out.
Well,
Partially
if the goal is in progress, isn't that partially completed? Isn't that the same thing?
No. In progress.
How is it different?
In progress means that nothing's complete. Or could allude to nothing's complete. It's non-descriptive.
It means it
means it's not complete.
There are 3 things: complete, in progress, not undertaken. In progress means it's partially completed.
However, we did...
In the goals, again, another reason that I think it should be included, the self-evaluation, line items all the goals and then responds to them. Some of the goals were, yes, in fact, 100% complete.
Yes.
All under the same heading. So some are complete and some are in progress.
Although on this goal, we did list it as complete, although it says in progress and partially completed, so I don't know
No,
why.
I checked both boxes. Now, if you think there's a better way to do it, that's fine.
Oh, I'm just reading where it says launch goal complete, so I wasn't sure. I see what you're saying. The X is
Right.
outside the box on my thing.
Right.
Okay.
And the individual ratings, after you look at the narrative, 1 was in progress, 1 was in progress, 1 was half complete, half in progress, and the other was complete. And I believe the sentence, all members felt that this goal was still in progress, with 2 members feeling that it was at least partially completed, is a factual representation of those 4 inputs.
It just doesn't seem like a consensus document in any way, shape,
Well, I
or
think we
form.
agreed last week, it's not going to be a consensus. What it is...
But it's supposed to be a consensus
Yeah,
document.
but we don't have a consensus, Phyllis. I mean, what we agreed last week is that we were going to ensure that everybody's input was there. And I tried to, in quotes, if you want to say that I left something out, you want it in there, that's fine. If you want to say you want something taken out that shouldn't be there, that's fine. But I believe we factually talked about what was accomplished, and then I included anything that you put on your input form to describe what was accomplished.
I just feel
Now, in
that...
terms of its length and the redundancy, I think we all agreed last week that future boards may choose to skinny down the whole form in the fact that there is a lot of repetitive. We talk about the 10 items, but a lot of the descriptors within the 10 items overlap with each other.
Yep.
There's a lot of redundancy. We say the same thing several different ways. So obviously, there's a way to skinny that down. But I do believe that my objective, and if I failed, please let me know, was to articulate what was accomplished and then to include each of the 4 members' opinions on how that reflects against their expectations. And if we don't get to a consensus on the 4 opinions being all in one direction, so be it. That's what it is. And I tried to articulate that. If I didn't, let's discuss that.
Well, like on individual characteristics, the board was split with 2 members exceeds expectation and 2 meets expectations. Can't you just say something like board members felt it was somewhere between exceeds and meets expectations?
Style-wise, I'm sure I could. I would feel that, I was criticized for not having everybody's input last time, and I thought the first way said it that 2 said this, 2 said that.
Personally, I'm going to say I really liked the numeric version where you itemized everything by a number, and it just 22 pages versus something that calculates at 80%. In the future, maybe we can combine some portion of the 2, but I like something with all of this information coming in, something concrete that means something. Because 22 pages of sort of summary and then knowing that 2/3 of it comes from a self-evaluation, then it's not a true evaluation of us as a board. If it gets documented as somebody's evaluation of themselves, my evaluation of myself as a selectman would probably be far different from other people's, and what interpretation are you looking for? And this one, if you read the policy and purpose and the procedure, I think the content was intended to come from us.
And what you're calling her own personal review with the 2/3, the first half of that is simply stating what the goal was so we know what we're talking about. And I certainly think that should be in there to say what the goal was.
I don't understand what you're saying.
In-
First half of what?
In any one of these, so goal 1, increase public outreach.
Okay, let's look at increased public outreach.
Can you say by what number we're on?
Oh, the goals.
okay.
Number 1.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really would rather focus on the part 2, individual characteristics, that section.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are just cut and pasted from the town manager's self-evaluation.
So every time there's the bullets, those came straight from there?
Everything,
Okay.
everything, word for word,
On every number?
just about. I mean, you look at, on items 8, 9, and 10, there are less than 10 words different when you do a word count.
Okay,
I
but
mean, they're just, it's the town manager's self-evaluation called the Board of Selectmen consensus.
Again, if you disagree with the substance, that's fine, but my opinion, Jamie could have thrown those words all up in the air, let them land back down, so it looked different, but said the same exact thing.
But he didn't.
To a fantastically greater effort than he already put in to put this together. And the result would be no different other than it didn't look the same.
I think the point that's come to light here is that all of the evaluation information in the beginning of each section came from a self-evaluation and not from our evaluations.
Well, if we agree to it, while we're talking about the substance, if we agree to it, then it is our evaluation.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I won't be able to agree to it.
But Phyllis, I mean, you just mentioned 8, 9, and 10, okay? Just pure word count. Number 8 is about half a description of what the town manager said she did, and the other half of what the members felt relative to that.
Which one are you on? You're on 8?
8. Number 9, there's almost nothing from the town manager saying what she did, and it's all comments from the board. One member stated this, another member stated that, contrasting that, a third member wrote this. I'm not sure, I think we have to know what we're talking about, and I did use, in fact, the description with a little more detail from the town manager's self-evaluation to describe what actual activities represented the bullets that we were looking for to represent fiscal management or relations with elected board members. But is there any input that you provided in your reviews that was not put in there?
Yes. If you took, when we're
Yeah,
talking
well,
about,
that's what we should be talking about.
well, that's one of the things we should be talking about. In problem-solving decision-making, I made 4 positive comments. And
Which number is that?
2. And they were not included.
Okay, you want to read them into the, is there something you want included there that I didn't include?
Yes, but I don't know that I can read it because
I'm not supposed to.
doesn't that make it the evaluation of public record if I read it?
Well, you already said you relied upon it at last meeting, so it's already a public record, is it not?
She didn't read from it, so I don't.
I didn't read from
Did you
it. I
rely
didn't
upon
have,
it? Did you have it with you? I thought
didn't
you
have
said you
it,
were
didn't have
planning
it
on
on the
doing that.
table.
I mean, it's in our brains, what we did in our own evaluation, so I don't know where the nuance is between discussing what's in
Right.
our mind, but reading it directly then discloses the
Well,
document.
okay, well then, off the top of your head, what would you like to include in number 2 that makes it more inclusive of your, I mean,
For one thing, I commended the town manager for getting that senior tax work-off committee work proposal done at warp speed. I also applauded the move to change the Veterans Office to the Ritter Memorial. And I recognized that she realized the increasing burden to the town of healthcare cost plans and that how she worked to make changes happen. And I talked about the contamination in the town's recycling program and applauded her for trying to get that under control. So there were 4 different things that I said that were positive, and what was included was one less than positive thing that I said, as opposed to the 4 positive things. I don't think it's a consensus document.
I would challenge that it might be more than a consensus document. It's a statement of fact and then individual opinions.
But the opinions were edited by your interpretation or subjective. I think
Most of them are word for word.
where, I think the point is though, then if there was content in there and because we've been criticized for our process of evaluating, if you take the one negative thing somebody said and leave out 4 positive, then it doesn't feel like I mean, we have a lot of work to do so that this is a better process in the future, I think is what a lot of this comes down to. It seems like it's overly redundant and complicated and then still doesn't really make us feel. Like I said, I like numeric. I'm too clinical and analytical for 22 pages of words to really provide meaning.
So, I mean, I'm confused at this point as to which direction you'd like to see this go in, because on one hand, you're saying it's not a consensus and it should be more blended together, and then on the other hand, saying that there's specific things, line items that are missing that you'd like to see included. So I don't know, are you looking for more, all of your line items to be in there, or you want it to be blended together more?
I would like it to be a consensus document of the 4 of us, and not the town manager, 2/3 of it, the town manager's self-evaluation.
But,
I don't know how I can make that any clearer.
but do you
I could like-
dispute what she's saying in the self-evaluation? Is it wrong?
I don't believe the self-evaluation puts a value on any of this and says it's good or bad. It just states what she accomplished. If I'm missing that, please let me know.
I mean, I honestly don't care who wrote it, as long as it gives an accurate depiction that we can agree upon about factual things that happened.
Well, for the purpose of discussion, I would like to make a motion that the town manager's self-evaluation be removed from this document. So that it is a consensus.
I would second that for the sake of discussion.
Wait a minute, I changed that motion.
Okay.
Then
I will wait and change my second.
I would like to make a motion that the town manager's self-evaluation remain included in this document.
In what way?
Okay, then out of curiosity, then I will second that for the sake of discussion.
So, the motion is to leave the self-evaluation pieces in the evaluation.
I can only assume you're hoping to get a negative determination in a 2-to-2 factor, but it's already in there anyway. So I don't know what...
I think I understand, based on the unique complexity of being 4-to-4 and future attempts to discuss things. I believe
All those
I
in
am
favor?
up to speed.
All those in favor?
I mean, I'd like to leave it in there, but you're voting in the negative doesn't change anything. It's already in there. You have to make a motion to take it out.
She made a motion to leave it in,
Okay.
and I seconded it for the sake of discussion.
But
And I
it makes no sense whatsoever.
It does. I understand. I understand now.
I know you think it's humorous, but
No, I don't. It took me a minute, and it's.
Well, it's there already, so if the motion to leave it there doesn't pass, it's going to stay there.
That's opposite of every other time we had a 2-to-2 vote. If it,
Not true. Not true.
The motion is to take no action. It doesn't, having a motion to take no
Okay.
action doesn't generate the action of doing the opposite.
okay.
We're
can
still in
I-
the discussion period, okay? It's in there to represent what activities were accomplished. If we want to edit it, that's what we're here to do, and I'm willing to stay here as long as we need to do it. All right, if you take it out, you got to replace it with some other descriptor. And frankly, in about an hour, I'm out of here, and you got to do that with a new board, which is not according to the town manager's contract. So let's stay and do it right and not get cute.
We could take all the 4 evaluations and have town council come up with a composite, come up with a consensus.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just sort of remove from being bogged down with a few weeks of discussion on this, I think the most clear thing that I can think and say is that we're not at consensus. And that has been not consensus about the topic, but the process. So I think if we can compromise and discuss it and really take people's interpretation seriously, I think we can have a product. I think the fact that 2/3 of this is based on self-evaluation from the employee is not the intent of a composite from the selectmen.
But the
think that's-
2/3 that's taken from the
Consensus.
employee is the activities that were accomplished. It is not an assessment of whether that was a good thing, a bad thing, if it was done well, or if it wasn't done well.
So then for the sake of discussion, I'll use an example, and we can, talk about
Sure.
things like that. I spoke about item 9 at the last meeting, so I don't want to be terribly redundant, but this item was the one that seemed to be the most spread, and 2 said exceeds expectations, and 2 said needs improvement. So that was the most dramatic. Item 9 was the most dramatically separated item in terms of interpretation. So under the evaluation type bullets that are in here, There's one that says disseminates complete and accurate information equally to all members in a timely manner. And I had spoken of the overall sense that I sometimes didn't feel like I had the same information upon the beginning of a meeting. And so, and I can't speak for the other members' interpretation of needing improvement. But that being a bullet point, if right off the bat we were opposite and two people felt it needed improvement, if you read through the bullets of item 9 as our evaluation of her, it doesn't match even the outcome of the rating. In the bullet, it should say somewhere in there that there was a split feeling about communication, and it doesn't. And
The rating says the board was split with 2 members exceeds and 2 needing improvement.
But the bullets are there as like qualifiers of the success, but it doesn't match
So the bullets are
outcome of
from the
rating.
form. The bullets are from the form.
Right, those bullets
They
are
were,
from the
they,
form.
nobody, they were on the form.
So, this is what she.
In there with hers.
And on that one, I don't see any place where it came from the town manager's evaluation.
The last paragraph is total.
That was my input. It happens to be very close to the town manager's. That was my input, my personal input.
Yeah, and it varied from the town manager's in 7 words.
And why is your personal input so largely a part of the consensus document? And I think that's where the confusion is.
No, it was the amount, all the other input was the amount that you put on your form. I didn't leave anybody's out on this one because I knew this one was critical. Is there anything on the form you submitted that isn't in this document? On number 9?
Well, I don't know that we know that because we didn't memorize
I'm
our
asking you
documents.
on your own. Is there anything you said that I didn't put in?
We weren't allowed to bring our documents.
Okay, maybe the words that's hanging us up is consensus. I think what it needs to be is an accurate representation of what each of us input. It doesn't have to agree.
But under the procedure, this document represents composite ratings from individual reviews and represents a consensus overview document.
And that was the intent and the purpose when we started it. It didn't come out that way because on several, there was, on 9 in particular, there was 2-2.
And I feel, I mean, I'm just trying to comprehend the amount of work that Jamie already put into trying to put this together, but I know leading up to this, even Mrs. Luck, even you were critical of having your voice not heard last year. And I think the way he crafted this made sure that your voice could be heard through this document. If it were truly blended together in a consensus document, I know somebody here would feel that they didn't get heard.
Does anybody disagree with there was a very long discussion with several boards over several years to move away from a 100% analytical process, which you may revisit in the future. But does anybody disagree with the numeric page? And if that were included as part of this document, would that address your concerns?
I don't disagree with the numeric, but it doesn't address my concerns.
Can you tell me how we can get there?
Remove the self-evaluation from pieces of the document. They just don't belong in a Board of Selectmen consensus document.
They're a statement of what activities occurred. They don't assess that, they just state it.
I just have a couple typos, so if we do come up with something that
Sure.
when we read through it, page 7 at the bottom, where it starts, Ms. Lemieux, the bottom statement, there's a she that's capital to be lowercase.
Is it the last word?
It's in the first line of the last
Okay,
paragraph.
got it.
Page 11, there's, towards the end, it's second to last paragraph, where there's quotes after the conveyance of town land for a period.
Oh, hold on. I haven't found it yet. What paragraph?
Second to the last, just needs a period.
Okay. Is that inside or outside the quotes? I always forget.
Well, where are the quotes start? Inside for that.
Thank you.
Page 13, there is a rogue number 10.
Yeah.
I think we caught that one, though. And then, page 15, sort of second paragraph, it says, "I know firsthand." It's done as a quote, just needs quotations at the start.
Okay.
And there's potentially other things. It's very rare that I find things like that. That's my sister's job.
Now look at 4, teamwork and leadership. From the self-evaluation. The department heads continue to be extremely supportive of Ms. Lemieux. She is seen as a leader and advocate of the staff. How is that knowable? Because we weren't able to interview anyone.
Right, I think it brings up a valid point that there's information in here, and this was one of the struggles of doing the evaluation, was there's some things, and we can make adaptations, there was some things that we don't know the answer to, that we were being asked to evaluate. So then in here, the fact that there's information that we didn't actually have access to, then it's not sourced from us. And so what you're saying does make sense to me, that there's content in here that is not sourced from us, and therefore...
Well, that one in particular, I have several occurrences where department heads have mentioned to me how supportive they are of Ms. Lemieux and her management style.
But were we allowed to seek that input?
We weren't.
I didn't seek it. It was unsolicited.
So it puts us at a disadvantage to evaluate something that we technically can't evaluate, but then you had evaluations of it. It's just confusing.
Consider that my input.
And I mean, when I had my individual meeting with Heather, we specifically talked about some of these categories where I don't have day-to-day insight of it. So I asked for things examples that she could provide that would, explain to me how she accomplished these goals or met
So
these
more-
expectations.
More direct input from the town manager on the town manager's evaluation. I mean, so it's probably more like 3/4
No,
than 2/3.
no.
I think Selectman Luck's point for when we work on this in the future is very well taken in the fact that it's such an important job in town, and there's so much that comes out of the town manager's work that we really should be able to evaluate. If the selectmen hire and have that responsibility, they really should be able to have a very meaningful and precise evaluation. Just the fact we're so confused by our own evaluations says that we need a better process.
I agree.
Well, if you had a 360 type evaluation process, and if that's what you had negotiated with the person before you hired him, I would tend to agree with you. But I do think that the current situation is one where the town manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations and her staff, and we observe what we observe interacting with that staff. We don't go ask for input from each of those people. We don't sit in on the staff meetings. That's not our job today. If that's something that a future board wants to discuss, it's certainly something worth discussing. I personally wouldn't support it, but you don't have to worry about me.
And I think having the items from the self-evaluation could be reworded any way you want to reword it, but what it does is add valuable, information as to what the goals were, what items were accomplished versus those goals, and again, if you want to disagree with the substance, let's have that conversation, but you can reword it however you want. It's important background to the evaluation.
I would agree if it was a separate section and shown as, from the town manager's self-evaluation, this is background. But it's embedded in the document as though it were the BOS consensus, when it's the town manager's self-evaluation. It
but-
should be separated. You could put it at the front if you want. Take it all out of the consensus and say, this is background information as pulled from the town manager's self-evaluation.
But it's important to be in here to say that we agree with that. It's not just straight out of the town manager's evaluation.
It is straight out of the town manager's self-evaluation. That's what
No.
I'm telling you.
And,
It's like cut and paste, boom.
but it's put in here so we can back up and agree that these things did in fact happen and not just her own report.
Well, if it was in a separate section, I would agree. But
Let us think about what we're doing here. What is the purpose of this review?
the review is, the town manager is reviewed annually on the achievement of the agreed-upon goals established the previous year and performance standards.
Okay, so,
The town manager has submitted a narrative self-evaluation, including a summary of the town manager's performance against goals and objectives for the year. So there's the self-evaluation.
but that's not
Board
part of this
members-
document.
Board
So
members,
I've tried to make it part of this document.
but
She
it's not
submitted,
supposed to be. It's a separate document. Board members completed their evaluations, met and discussed the conclusions with the town manager, and gave their input to the chairman. So we all did that. I actually added more things after I met with her. This document represents composite ratings from individual reviews and represents a consensus overview document.
of all three of the top ones.
I don't believe the narrative self-evaluation should be embedded in the consensus overview. That's just simply where I am.
Okay, but your consensus overview is there, right?
You mean the consensus overview is there?
I mean, you don't like them together, but you do believe that we did put together a consensus of input. It didn't come to an agreement, but we did include all the input from the 4 members of the board.
I have to assume it. I can't, I didn't see anybody else's, so I don't know.
Is yours there?
Many-
Mine is.
Many of mine are there, yes.
Mine is.
I mean, I think the purpose of this discussion right now is to determine, is yours there? Do you feel yours is adequately represented?
It's more than is yours there. Do you agree this is a consensus document that you can sign and support? And I don't. So, that's the.
What's
you know,
missing?
It's what's included. I don't know how many different times I need to say it. This town manager self-evaluation does not belong, in my opinion. And, you all can sign it, but I'll just put a note on it that I did not agree because of the town manager's self-evaluation being embedded.
It makes sense to me. It's a separate document with a separate item, and then it's showed up twice. It makes sense to me that it's unusual that our document is largely fueled, and you did the word count, you said?
Yeah.
So you would like no highlight of what the goals were under each topic?
I just want the town manager's self-evaluation removed.
But there is information in there that I believe is critical to this evaluation that you would just like to strike completely?
If it's part of the town manager's self-evaluation, yes.
Stating the goals that
Oh,
you're
the goal.
responding to.
I guess I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Well, I think there's two separate parts. The goal part was sort of discussing the 3 individual goals. So I don't know if you
Yeah, I'm not
look at-
referring to that.
I
I'm
don't
not
think the goal section is exactly so much as when we go through the 10 items and rate the exceeds, meets, and needs portion. So, I mean, I think a consensus document of the 4 of us would make more sense to have just truly been our consensus of the employee being reviewed rather than their own.
But you're
input.
asking each of us to make a comment on how the town manager did against the 10 factors. All right, and what the town manager did in her self-assessment is tell us some activities that she did that fall under those 10 areas. You then have the ability to state whether you thought she did them well, did not do them well, they were the right things, she took too long to do them. But you have to start someplace to say, what are the activities that support that particular bullet? The bullet is a generalization that says we want them to show, for a second, leadership. The town manager told us, here's a couple of things I did that I believe showed leadership.
To a point.
That's fact. Then you say, your input as a performance review is, I think she showed great leadership, not so great leadership, I don't think she shows any leadership.
Well, for one thing, I didn't understand that we were supposed to be responding directly to her self-evaluation. I would have done this completely differently if I
Correct.
knew it was supposed to be
Because her
bullet, bullet.
self-evaluation had her evaluation and her interpretation of her performance, and so everything she wrote supported her rating of herself.
Right.
So it's hard to take that information and
Well, her
extrapolate
ratings aren't
it.
in there. The activities were in there.
Correct, but everything she wrote supported her ratings. I think we should provide a different product. It makes sense to me.
So if you're going to give instruction to somebody to rewrite this, what do you disagree with? Besides the sentence structure being the same. Is there any substance that you
Two
disagree
things
with?
I disagree with the town manager's self-assessment being embedded, and I disagree that we were supposed to look at the town manager's self-evaluation and address every point, whether we agreed or disagreed. I did not understand. I thought we were looking at the bullets, the individual characteristic bullets, and then saying how we felt about it, not responding directly to the town manager's self-evaluation.
Well, let me tell you how I built this thing, just so you understand what I was doing. I looked at the characteristic, and I had 5 input documents, the 4 of ours and the town manager's self-evaluation. I took the town manager's self-evaluation and said, here's the activities she said she did relative to these items. I edited them slightly, changed tense, tried to move it from I did this to she did that.
This, yeah, right.
Right, okay, fine. That was fact. That's what got accomplished. Then I think I tried to include all of the input of the other 4 that qualitatively or through narrative discussed your opinion of how she did on the top bullet. Not necessarily, I agree with you, not necessarily each of the items that she submitted. So there's 2 data points. There's what she accomplished, and there's your opinion relative to one of the 10 characteristics.
Right. So they
And it's all there in one place so we can discuss it.
But they don't directly connect.
I don't think they have to.
We didn't know that we were supposed to be responding to her self-evaluation.
And I don't think you have to.
Weren't.
You're responding to
I wasn't.
one of the 10 items and the bullets that are under them, which were part of the form. They didn't come from the town manager or from us. That's what we started with.
Just for the sake of being analytical and clinical and removed from us and anything, a statement you just made is that she put in there what she accomplished, and then we put in our opinions. And I think you're putting her self-evaluation information as what she accomplished as fact, and then you use the term our opinion. And to be fair, somebody's personal evaluation of themselves may be riddled with opinion and subjectivity. And so I think it's important to not say that you have to take somebody's interpretation of what they did as also potentially containing opinions. And I don't mean specifically for this, but to differentiate the two as what she accomplished and then our opinions, I think sort of degrades our ability to say what we think was accomplished, not necessarily as an opinion, but our interpretation of fact. And some of it is subjective, like I go back to item 9, where it says, how were we communicated with as a board? It's not my opinion that I felt that I was not communicated well with. For me, that feels like my fact. And so I think we need to be careful to call them opinions, because then it undermines my ability to say that my fact was that I wasn't communicated well with.
But it's not your fact. It is your opinion.
But it's also a fact to my answer to the
What makes it a
question.
fact? How is that a fact?
Because if I felt like communication was well, then I would say that it met or exceeded expectations, but oftentimes I felt under-communicated with, and that is my opinion, but then it becomes, for me, the fact of how the experience was for me. And so I think we need to be careful with the concept of opinions,
But
because
that's
when
still,
you're doing
the way you feel, the way you perceive things is your opinion. That is not a fact
So
in the
it-
real world.
so
That's
the-
not a fact to anybody but you, which means it's your opinion.
But the point I'm making then is her self-evaluation is her opinion of herself.
And it's here
So
for
like
us to
for like.
respond to and edit if you feel it needs to be edited. If you feel there's anything wrong in there, let's hear what's wrong. I'm not hearing any examples of what is categorically wrong with these statements.
I think overall it's too verbose, so it's hard to even it's hard to even give input on something so bogged down with word. I think my opinion was, after we read it for an hour and 20 minutes at the last meeting, was what was our consensus. Not to be facetious, but it felt like we hadn't reached one. The
Well, we
document.
didn't. What we stated in here was the board was split with 2 members exceeding expectations and 2 members needing improvement. And then there were quotes from all 4 members justifying why they said exceeds or needing improvement. That's as close as we're going to get, I think.
So we have a motion in a second on the table. I would make another one, but I don't want to do one on top of another.
Well, I called for a vote, nobody voted.
Yeah, I'm abstaining from that one on the
Okay,
grounds that it's a backwards motion in.
So the nay
Nay.
and an abstain.
Well, wait a minute. You voted to leave him in there. You both voted nay? Nay. It passes. We'll leave him in there.
No,
Yes.
we had nay, 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 and abstain to leave them in. So it failed. They're not in.
No. You're making a motion in the negative. It doesn't work that way.
I'm
I don't
not
really
sure.
want to play games. What can we do to accomplish what we came here to do
We
tonight?
put a notation for town council on that motion and understand what happened there.
I'll change my vote to an abstain.
Okay, so leaving it in there may not have passed.
I don't really care.
Leaving it in there wasn't.
I do care. We need to know legally what happened with our motion.
It's in there, and you made a motion that didn't pass.
So then maybe it's not in there. We don't know.
No, you can't. Oh, my God. The fact that you don't understand how that works troubles me.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion that we include the numeric information that you compiled from the 22-page consensus, along with a tabulation of the 80% as part of the formal review.
Second.
For discussion purposes, there's a reason why I didn't want to do that. It's historical. People that have sat on this board for a while know the discussion we had and the agreements we made. But after having said that, if it's going to help this process, I would vote in the affirmative to that motion. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, again, just remembering the past conversations of why it's not in there. I think it's fine to have it as a supplement, but I certainly think the words are more important than that tabulated rating. But if it helps this process, we can put it in there.
Close it. What?
Can I add to
Sure,
the
please do.
discussion? At this point, I would agree to that, but I don't think it follows the process that was outlined from the beginning of the document. That's something contractually is set forth in my contract, that the performance evaluation tool is agreed on at the beginning of the year. And this is a eve of the last night that this document needs to be done contractually.
So would you rather it not be included?
But I have a question. I think it
would like
has.
the board to agree to something for a finalized document. I think, so if that's gonna forward the progress.
And an interesting nuance, because it is now public record because it's been a part of 2 of our meetings, so it'll exist either way.
It's a public record. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the review.
Correct, but just,
Right.
that's why I said nuance, it exists either way.
Okay. But I do want to ask, contractually, you have to provide me with a composite document, it's a summary, before the annual town election. So what will that document be?
I'm going to hold your motion until we have that discussion.
I guess being my first time, I find it confusing that we're presented with this as part of it, but then we can't have it as part of it technically, and, but as long as it's legal to do so, I'm comfortable including this, because I feel like it helps bring 22 pages into something understandable. It was valuable to me, and I appreciated seeing it, and I think other people may too.
You know, if, I agree with Katie, but if the town manager would be more comfortable not including it, that's,
Yeah, if this comes to something where we're going to say we went against a contract, then I guess I will undo my motion for now, because I certainly don't want to go down a path that we're not allowed to go down.
right.
Do you want to withdraw your second?
Sure.
Okay.
It was intended as a tool. It is in fact a public record. It is part of our discussions. We do contractually owe the town manager a document that we all agree is the document. We don't have to agree on,
Then a question for you, just so we can get to, I'm just trying to piece together a compromise and move it forward. Can we have a conclusion paragraph that verbalizes some of this information and have that be a part of the contractual consensus that after looking at the ratings, you know, it comes to an 80%? Like, can that, as not as a graph, but can it go in as information? That's just a question.
hopefully this is a helpful way to, this document with the numbers on is a helpful way to get your head around it. But it doesn't say anything different than what the words say after each thing. It says, 2 said this, 2 said that. It doesn't do the averages. That's why I did it separate, so you could see where it ended up. I did it by name, so you could see where your input fell versus everybody else's. But it's not any different than what's already in the document. I think it's a public document that sits next to it. I don't know that it needs to be part of the review unless somebody feels it has to.
So just a question, since all of this information came from this document, then it seems like it could be included as part of the contractual consensus agreement, because it's basically just summarizing 22 pages and all of the information came from the thing. So I think it can probably go in there.
I don't have a problem with that. I think the town manager's point, I don't want to put words in her mouth, is that she wants a document as part of her contract.
Yeah, because you just took the response from everything here and put it in one place. So I think everything on this is in here. So I feel comfortable that it would meet the contractual agreement, that what we presented is in fact what we're providing. We just made a summary sheet. So, I mean, I feel like this takes 22 pages and gives people a way to see everybody's response together. I really appreciate that you put this together, and since it all came out of the document, I guess I will feel more confident now revisiting my motion to please include this summary and as part of the document, so that people have a way to, like, going to an index to look for some, I like that this was a part of it for us. I'd like it to be there for everybody. So, a motion that this is included.
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion. And again, if the town manager would rather it not be included, I'm fine with voting against the motion.
Again, I don't want to speak for the town manager. I think that if we included and sign a document that we agree that this is a fair representation of our disagreements and agreements,
Yeah, and
that
I
would meet our,
can't, I can't agree to that.
what do you need to change to agree to it?
The town manager's self-evaluation has to be removed, for me to agree.
I think that leaves a gaping hole.
I think it takes a lot of information that is a description of what was accomplished out.
Put it in a
And I
separate
couldn't
document
support
from,
that.
you could say from the town manager's self-evaluation. And then just stick them all in a separate document that's attached to this.
I think it makes sense if this is intended to be our consensus evaluation of the town manager, then her evaluation shouldn't be 2/3 of what's embedded in it. It makes sense to me.
But okay. I hear what you're saying.
If at the beginning we were told that's what was going to happen and we agreed to it, then I would have to agree to it.
So more than a majority of this is her evaluation of herself.
Yes.
Right. But what you
So it's not a consensus of us.
It can be. If you take it out and put it separately and just attach it, then you're giving it more power than it has in here.
That's okay with me.
Because
It's
then
the opposite of what you're trying to
when
do.
people interfaced with the information, they would see it as her evaluation, and then what's left would be our evaluation as 100% of that document.
I contend that her evaluation is no more than a statement of activities.
Well, then remove it. Because
But a
it's
statement
no
of the
more than a
activities is part of what we're commenting on, and I think it makes it a more complete document.
But that goes to my global point earlier of statement of activities, whether or not it's fact versus opinion, and there's a lot of
Did they
subjectivity.
happen or didn't they?
Well, we don't necessarily know whether it all
Or it
happened.
Which
may have
one are you
happened
disputing?
different- Well, it may have
Tell me
hap-
what you don't know.
I think the point is that it may have happened differently, and it's for people's consent.
You've had an opportunity. Specifically, what do you want to change? I think a blanket take it all out is inappropriate.
And I think leaving it in is inappropriate. So that's where we are.
I'm still waiting to hear something that is not correct or spun in a way that you disagree with that should be taken out specifically, because blanketly taking it out removes a lot of valuable information.
It just removes the town manager's self-evaluation. The Board of Selectmen should have been able to put together a consensus document that did not require embedded self-evaluation of the town manager. We have failed if that's what we've done.
I agree. If over half the document was not sourced from our input, then it's not our consensus.
It is if you can agree and back up that it's factual and true. It's our consensus. What is not true?
Just that it wasn't sourced from us, I think, is the primary.
We're here sourcing it right now. We're fact-checking it. What's wrong with it?
Well, I mean, here's one thing that I wouldn't know. She has resolved employee disciplinary issues that, if not done correctly, could result in expensive litigation. I don't know that.
I do.
How do you know that?
Because we haven't had a lot of litigation.
Do we know that? Because most of the litigation in these situations lots of times becomes private, if there is. I mean, I know of anything I've been privy to.
Well, if it's litigation, we have to approve the attorney fees.
I just don't know that, I mean, I'm assuming it's fact because she put it in a self-evaluation. But I have no knowledge of that aside from it being here in the self-evaluation section.
Believe
I
we've
think we're
had,
getting hung up on the calling it self-evaluation.
But
The
that's what it
self-evaluation
was.
is when the town manager took all that information and said, I believe I exceeded expectations or met expectations. The data itself isn't the evaluation. The data is, here's all the stuff I did. And therefore, I think I exceeded expectations. We didn't move that over at all. We just said, these are the things she did. Now it's your turn to say whether you thought that exceeded expectations or met expectations.
Yeah,
And I
did-
believe we did that.
And I did not understand that we were responding specifically to
You're
this.
not. You're responding to the 10 items. And show me where using the town manager's report on activities is incorrect under those 10 items. And we'll change it.
Because it's not a consensus overview document. It's 2/3 the town manager's self-evaluation,
Of the
1/3 Board of
activities.
Selectmen.
We don't need a consensus on the activities unless you disagree with them.
So then, let's remove them from the document. I'm not gonna sign it with these, the three of you can sign it. I'll just write a note that I was not able to sign it because of the embedded self-evaluation. That's, you know,
I could
we
live
can
with
be
that.
here all night.
I could live with that. Can the other board members live with that?
as long as we have 3.
Ms. Adams?
I don't know, because I certainly don't want there to not be a product, but I certainly understand what Selectman Luck is saying, is that if 2/3 of this were cut and pasted from a self-evaluation, it's not a consensus document of the 4 of ours response. And in situations where we as a board don't have a response, like some of the questions were a struggle, like one's about employees' relations, I think the response should reflect the level of which we have engaged. If there's information in here that's beyond our ability to evaluate, then it isn't our consensus and the information didn't come from us.
And on those occasions when somebody felt they didn't have any information, I did not include it and I didn't put it in the calculation.
But globally, there's certain questions, like department heads continue to be extremely supportive. She is seen as an advocate for the staff. That is true from their interpretation, but as our consensus document, how does it make it in?
So you could disagree with
We don't have
it. You
access
could say,
to
I
that.
don't agree with that.
Well, it's not that I don't agree with it being true, I just don't know if I agree with it as being a true statement coming from our consensus, because that's not something that we can truly evaluate. I think that's more the point.
I've seen department heads give praise to the town manager, and through the capital planning, through comments they make at town meeting, through comments they make when they come before us to talk on subjects.
And I have as well. And if you don't have that observation, fine. You could either state you don't have an observation, or you could assume it's true, or say it's not true. That's your right.
I think more of my thoughts belong with how to make this better for the future, with also knowing that we need a product for now. So I think I have to separate those two things. I think this is a really bad process, but we need to provide a product in what feels like a bad process. So a lot of my thoughts would just be in making an evaluation that's very easy to follow and conduct, and doesn't, the amount of hours we've put into evaluating the evaluation is more than we put into evaluating, which it shouldn't be.
You have to do that in the beginning of the cycle, not the end.
No, that's my point. I'm just saying that this is an opportunity to move into the next time around and improve it. So a lot of my thoughts and things, I don't know if they have to do with going against this so much as improving next time.
Can I suggest that we vote on the motion to include the numeric data and then determine if we want to sign the document, and those that don't feel that they want to sign it, attach a statement to that effect? That's not a motion. I'm just asking, is that a process that we'd want to pursue?
I think we can finish out the motion and then go from there. That makes sense.
Okay, so if I remember the motion, it was to include the numeric data, not necessarily setting a precedent, because future boards will determine what the evaluation process is prior to the year that you're measuring. But for the purpose of this evaluation, we will include this as another part of, another document that's part of the,
Sure. If I'd like to just call it the summary, because it's all content that is actually in the document. So we're not providing something outside of what was agreed upon. We're just providing a summary.
was there a second to that?
Yeah, I second it.
as
But my question is,
massaged.
how do you feel about that?
I'm agreeable to including it. I'm not agreeable to substituting it for my evaluation.
Oh, I agree.
Substituting it for what, your self-evaluation, you mean?
No,
For the whole thing.
your composite evaluation, I'm not agreeable to
So
Oh,
what is
substituting it, right,
substituting it
right.
for it.
So what is our the 22 is the composite you
Yeah.
speak of?
Yeah.
Well, this becomes a part of that.
Right. She's not
This is
asking
a
to
part-
switch it. to change
I'm not
it.
asking to switch. I'm saying I'd like this to be added to the composite as a page
Right.
that summarizes.
And I
the
just
22
just
pages.
wanted to make sure that she's agreeable to that.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So now that we know what the document is, do we feel comfortable saying this is the document with the typos that were identified, with the understanding that one member is going to not sign it?
Here's a question for potential compromise. Would there be the potential to start off and add in information that explains how much of this comes from a self-evaluation, and the reason it's in there is to help bridge the gap between moments that we don't have access to, so that we're trying to fill in blank. Do you see where I'm going with that?
I think that's where Mrs. Luck's extra comments
Would you-
can address
And
that.
rather than not signing it and including the reason why, could we call out what is in here that makes it feel incorrect to you? That way it's understood that it's a part of it and people see where the content's coming from. It's more of just a thought or a question to say we could start off by saying in this document, in places where we wouldn't have access to things, for example, in employee evaluations, we have used the self-evaluation information and embedded it in the document as a way to.
Can we identify the pieces that are the self-evaluation document? Can they be italicized? Can it be, say, as per the town manager's self-evaluation, and then italicize each section so that it's obvious that it's
But
the town manager's
So
self-evaluation?
that's where we disagree, because the fact that it's in here now, and I don't dispute any of these things, and I can corroborate almost all of them, I feel is my representation. It's not just the town manager's evaluation anymore, it's mine, because I agree with what it's saying, and I can corroborate what it's saying. So it in fact is
But do
part
you-
of my evaluation, it's
do
not
you-
just hers.
Do you disagree that it was lifted, cut and paste from the town manager's
No,
self-evaluation?
I absolutely know it.
I'll admit that.
So ma-
Yeah.
So then why can't it be identified as such?
Because it's not.
Because
Once
it-
I put it in there, it became a fact of what was accomplished.
He could have rewrote it and included all the same data, rewrote it completely.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, and we need to be honest here, when you take somebody else's words and then put it in our document as our words, we've plagiarized the self-evaluation.
No. What I did is I took a report of
It's cut and
activities-
pasted.
Can I finish, please? I took a report of what activities occurred, and they became my words because I wrote a list of what occurred. Then I took all the input that you gave me and tried to include it all as an assessment of how well you thought those activities addressed the goal or the factor of 10. The fact that I cut and pasted saved me a couple of hours. But I wouldn't, if I started from scratch, I still would have had to come up with a list of activities.
To find compromise, though, would you mind listing in the document the information that came out of the town
Yes.
manager's
Yes, because
self-evaluation?
once I wrote it, it was no longer that.
I disagree, because that's exactly where it came from. So
what?
it can't not be that if it is. Just looking for compromise so that everyone feels comfortable. And if
If they were identified as being lifted
I
from
think
the town manager self-evaluation, I would be willing to sign it.
Well, compromise is a nice word. The point is, I wrote what I believe was a summary of activities. Where I got it from just made my Sunday a little easier.
This is the problem that the consensus was sourced through one person.
No, the consensus, what was added after the activities were listed. Did anything you said not get included or get misrepresented?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we should be talking about right now.
Can't find it now.
I'll throw something in while we wait. I mean, looking at 6, the supervisory oversight and direction, and again, something that's hard for us to evaluate. When this is our consensus document coming from us four, and it starts off with Ms. Lemieux meets with department heads and other staff to review ongoing future projects. She listens first, offering feedback to help achieve the goal, checking later on the status, valuing the ideas and input of department. That can't be our consensus because none of us could have created that response. We don't know that.
How would you suggest we change that?
Is that things that didn't come from us aren't in here, I think is the suggestion.
Well,
Or they're labeled exactly what they are from the town manager's self-evaluation.
I'm willing to take edits.
Okay, italicize everything from the town manager's self-evaluation and state it as
That's not
such.
an edit.
It is technically an edit. It's a suggested edit.
You read a sentence. You want to change the sentence?
Yeah, at goal 5, the
Just
last.
that's not our, sorry, go ahead. No, he was asking about the sense, that this isn't our consensus because it didn't come from us.
Do you want to take that sentence out?
I think just things that are sourced from the town manager, I think it would make sense to.
Well, it says, Ms. Lemieux meets with department heads and other staff reviewing ongoing and future projects. Is that true or not true? I believe it's true.
Where are you?
Page 13. But then the level of detail, she listens first, offering feedback to help achieve the goal, checks later to check on the status, valuing the ideas of input. That's not information that came from us.
Would you like to take that out?
I don't mind having it in there listed as information from her. I think it could be a part of the document if the source is understood. I don't know. I'm just understanding what Selectman Luck is saying, and I think it makes sense that our consensus composite evaluation can't be sourced from not us. It should have been our 4 evaluations making a composite. There's so much content in here that didn't come from the 4 of us.
It's a list, what you're objecting to is a list of activities.
Not really. Like Heather has had one-on-one conversations with staff about always acting in a professional manner. These are not easy conversations, but are necessary to uphold the integrity of the organization. How does the Board of Selectmen know that?
Then let's delete that line if you really have a problem with it, because there's a lot of other information in that paragraph, which is,
But there's a lot of embedded, spun throughout the whole thing are things like that.
I would not agree that it's as,
Hey, maybe I could have done a better job editing it, and I'm willing to do that now to get this done. But it's a list of the activities.
then you should say, as stated in the town manager's self-evaluation, and put it in italics. I would be more than happy if the consensus document showed what was Ms. Lemieux's self-evaluation and what was our what were our inputs.
I think that makes perfect sense.
This does not do
But
that.
I don't think you can do it as a blanket like that. If you want to do it sentence by sentence, let's go.
I don't want to do it sentence by sentence. I want her self-evaluation to be identified as such.
See, I
And I would
disagree
like it-
with calling it.
I would rather have it
disagree
taken
with
out of-
calling it her self-evaluation.
But it comes from there.
Yeah, it comes from there.
And so in anything
if
you're
you
writing, like a report or something, you have to document the source. So what we're saying is document the source of the
This
information.
is not a term paper. I wrote a draft that was subject to edit by you. Let's edit.
But if information comes from somebody else, all Selectman Luck is saying, and I agree, is to say, as stated from the...
So let's take it out. If you don't like
We're
it,
not
let's take
saying
it out.
remove, we're saying...
Or
just-
take everything out. Take it out or identify
Well, I'll
it
tell
as
you the
what it
truth.
is.
Ms. Lemieux meets with department heads and other staff to review ongoing and future projects is a fact. I think it belongs there as a fact that happened under supervisory oversight. I agree that the second one might be a little subjective. You want to take it out, let's take it out. But I don't think you can just blanketly say, take everything out because it happened to come to me through a document that she wrote for another purpose. I didn't put her evaluation in there, I put her list of activities in there.
You cut and paste her self-evaluation into the Board of Selectmen consensus document.
Into a draft that becomes a consensus when we discuss it. And
If,
so far, we're not discussing it.
if you want to leave her consensus, her self-evaluation in, just italicize it.
No,
And
I wanna leave
identify
the-
it as such.
Phyllis, I want to leave the facts in. And you want to take the...
And, you can, they are the
Then
facts.
tell me what to take out.
They're other,
It becomes a consensus when we agree. Tell me what
Selectman
to
Luck
take
is
out.
giving a path to leaving it all in so long as we cite the source of the information of which was not a part of our documents.
Right.
If it didn't come from one of our 4 documents and you cite the source as from, input from town manager, and put it in quotes, if you, in documents and in things, you have to cite sources. The source for this is not one of our 4. So to call it a consensus of our 4 documents without citing where other information is coming from doesn't make sense because
The
it doesn't.
consensus is the evaluation, not the list of facts.
No,
so
but
then
it's our-
identify the list of facts as what
Tell
they
me what
are.
to change.
For the
I think
15
it's too cumbersome to go line by line and to hash out. It's cut and pasted from a source, and we could just identify the source, and we could all sign it. I just can't be here till 11 o'clock having this conversation
Saying the same
line
thing
by
over and over.
line and being completely redundant. We're just saying if it didn't come from our 4 evaluations, because the understanding is this is a consensus of our evaluations of the town manager. Simply saying if there's information in here that couldn't be privy to us or came from somewhere else, it's okay if it makes it comprehensive and read well and make sense, but just cite the source.
Exactly.
And then people will understand as they're reading it that this is our consensus intermingled with the self-evaluation. That makes such perfect sense in terms of the readability and the understanding of it. There's no reason to mass a source of information that we can't have to, because somebody might come along and say, well, they're not supposed to be engaged in this day-to-day operation. There's so much day-to-day information in here. Who knew the day-to-day information? I think it's completely reasonable to say we took day-to-day information from the
I
self-evaluation.
think it's completely lazy to not go through this and say you agree with it or disagree with it, and you're just going to italicize it. Because once you sign it, you agree with it. Doesn't matter if it's italicized or not.
I would agree with saying the sections that came from this town manager's self-evaluation came from the town manager's
So
self-evaluation.
say that, you said you wanted to put a little side note on there, say it there.
I don't know what you're saying. Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm not willing to sign it unless we identify the components that are the town
Well,
manager's
let's go
self-evaluation
line by line and
as saying.
identify it.
We did line by line reading it which was a speedier way than going line by line and discussing, and that was about
Well,
an hour
had you
and
commented as we were reading through it, we might have been able to delete them along the way.
I think that some of them make sense to be there, but should be cited. So,
Each section, that is the town manager's self-evaluation, should be identified as such.
so I have a question, Chairman Toll. What is the disadvantage of citing her information in the report? Like, what is the negative in that?
That's a good question.
Like, why not disclose the source? What do we gain by not?
It's not that I'm trying to not disclose the source. I did a lot of work to write 22 pages, and I'm saying if some of it in there is inappropriate, let's take it out.
If you put the town manager's self-evaluation next to this document, it's just so obvious that it was cut and paste.
One was a source of the other,
So,
but not all of it.
well, in, the town manager's self-evaluation in the individual characteristics was 476 words. The composite was 556 words, so you did take some words out. But when I read it, it just flowed exactly like the town manager's self-evaluation and the composite were the same.
Because about
you
the
made
same
cheap-
percentage of about the same percentage of the town manager's document was telling us what she did.
So, I
So
guess
I'm telling you what she did. Now, you want to evaluate it, let's get at
I
it.
don't understand why we can't just identify that it came from her self-evaluation. I really don't understand why that just clarifies the document. It doesn't cloud it. It makes
There was no intent to cloud anything.
Correct. I have no intent to go line by line and strike things when all we really need to do is just source
Identify.
the information and identify the content as what does belong to our consensus and what came from another source. I think I would be ready to sign it if we would simply just say that this is the consensus of the four selectmen's evaluations per, contract, and embedded in here to help fill in the gaps. We will identify information that came from the town manager's self-evaluation. And as you're reading along, like you had said, you could say, from the town manager's evaluation, she cited X, Y, and Z. We're quoted in there. Why can't she be quoted in the things that actually come from her? I think it makes it more readable and more understandable. It puts more value to how we know information we technically didn't engage with. And I think that, to me, is a concern where a lot of information in here isn't things
Well,
that
I
we
spent the
have
better part of a
access to.
Sunday doing what I did. If someone wants to spend the same amount of time going in and finding those 37 words and changing them,
But you're
I
saying
guess
you're
you have a right
unwilling
to
to
do that.
edit it, so I don't know how we get to a point where we sign it. Even if we went line by line, there has to be time put into the edit, so. I would make a motion that we've already included the summary. I would make a motion that we sign and submit to the town manager the evaluation, as long as we are able to document and source the information in here that did not come from our four evaluations.
I would second that.
who's going to do that?
It's really simple. It's the first paragraph in most of them, and in one case, it's the last paragraph. It's really easy. I could do it. It's so transparent. It's just really easy.
So you would simply just cite the source of the information that didn't come from our documents. So our four documents are embedded
Well,
in here.
I could, because I didn't see the other three documents, I could only put what was cut and pasted
Here's the
from the
problem
town
with that.
manager's
Here's the problem with
self-evaluation.
that process. Unless you want to have another meeting, you're not going to have the ability to vote on whatever changes somebody makes.
So tonight, we could
Well, we could
vote.
agree to do it at the May 21st meeting.
No, it has to
believe
be
you
done
can.
by the
Yes, you
election.
can.
We could add in a,
It's supposed to be done by the election.
But unless the town manager and the board agree to have it go later.
And then, we can vote to approve it subject to X, Y, and Z changes. And so my motion was to approve and sign this document with the exception that we add in and source the content that came from the town manager's self-evaluation.
And I think that's too blanket a statement to modify it that much.
No, it's just anything
And
that...
frankly, the reason I wanted to do it line by line, frankly, is that some of the town manager's subjective statements on her opinions I share, and they could be counted as my input.
And mine as well.
Then you should have included,
I did include them.
But then you had the opportunity to create that consensus of you.
And if we hadn't spent the past 2 hours trying to blanket do this, we could have gone through and you would have had the same opportunity to put your input in. Same thing last meeting, we could have gone line by line and took care of it then, but you chose to just abstain, so now you don't have that opportunity.
So I think the input is to strike all of which did not come from our evaluations or to cite it. Going
you don't
line by
know.
line won't change that.
But you can't do that, because some of what's in there that happens to match what was in the town manager's evaluation is my input.
And mine.
So then it's not a consensus document because then it
No,
was
the
created too
consensus
much
is
in
what
one
we're
direction.
trying to do now.
To cite the town manager's evaluation. The things that are day-to-day operations can't be our input because we don't do that. So all of
So
those
point out
highly-
what you can agree with, and we'll determine if we can agree that it should come out.
Anything that was taken almost word from her evaluation and interpreted as somebody else's is technically considered plagiarism. We should not
No, it's not
plagiarize her
plagiarism.
evaluation
No,
into
it's not.
ours.
No, it's not.
I'm not willing to sign it again unless what was cut and pasted from the town manager's evaluation is cited as where it came from.
I don't think it matters where it came from. Is it true or is it not true? Can you agree with it or can you not agree with it?
Well, we disagree. I think it's a major substance. It sets a really bad precedent.
If 2/3 of the
Both-
document is not from our documents, then it's not our consensus, just by nature of that basic information. I don't think
A
it's-
certain portion of this is going to be a list of activities. Who on this board is going to list all those activities? It has to come from some source.
Right, and then
Well,
just
then
cite the
just cite it.
source.
Cite the source.
That's it. It did come from a source, and we're fine with that, but we're saying cite it so that we understand that it's a consensus document with input from another source.
But it's a
And I think it was I think on all of, it was the first paragraph in all of them, except maybe the last one. And it was the last paragraph. Or maybe it's
I would
9,
suggest that
item
either
9.
of you or both of you write something that you want to add to this that explains your concerns.
I think to be a consensus document, then it just,
The consensus is,
should be
and maybe
included.
consensus is the wrong word. The input from the board, whether it agrees with each other or not, is what our comments are over and above the list of activities.
I agree with Selectman Luck that this is not our consensus document because 2/3 of the content didn't come from
It
our 4
doesn't
documents.
matter where it came from if you can agree with it or not.
Well, I just disagree.
But we're saying we don't, and that's
No.
not being validated.
What don't you agree with?
Not sourcing the source.
We just disagree that it's embedded and it appears to be part of the consensus document, which it's not. It's the town manager's self-evaluation, and it has to be identified. That's all you gotta do. Put it in italics, whatever. Where what comes from this town manager's self-evaluation has to be recognized as what it is. And then I'll sign it. If you can't do that, I can't sign it, because it's not a consensus overview document. 2/3 of it is the town manager's self-evaluation, and that's a terrible precedent to set.
They're statements of fact.
We're just saying the same thing back and forth.
We are. But I mean, the town manager's self-assessment is when she took all that data and said, this is all that I did, and I believe that means I met expectations or I exceeded expectations. That's her self-evaluation. The fact that she listed, I did this and I did that and I did that, is an activity list that is subject to us saying, yeah, we agree she did that or she didn't.
I'm not
Then let's do
I'm not
that.
disagreeing with her self-evaluation at all, because that's what she did. She did. I mean, she behaved very appropriately, and she did a self-evaluation. The problem comes when it is taken from her self-evaluation and embedded in our evaluation without citing what it is.
Because it's supposed
That's
to be
the
our
problem.
consensus document.
But it is not our evaluation. It is a list of what she did followed by our evaluation.
So then just cite it. I don't understand why you have so much trouble citing it. I just don't understand what
I have
the
trouble
problem
dealing
is.
with it as a blanket. All right? It's data that's in there. You disagree with it? Let's take it out or change
We
it.
don't disagree with the data, we just are saying to.
It's misrepresenting.
Cite.
It's not
that-
misrepresenting.
Because the information in there isn't information that I can say that I knew.
So then let's take it out.
Then let's
You can't
remove
say, if
all
you,
of
if no,
That
if,
was-
Just take the self-evaluation out.
That was
That's
Selectman
ex-
Luck's original
Yeah, right.
recommendation, is to remove it
but
all.
99% of this stuff we can corroborate. You just don't want to go through it.
We did go through, I mean, I understand what's in there, but if it's sourced from not our documents, then it's not part of our documents summary. It's from an outside source, I just cite it, and then it reads fine.
We came to last week's meeting and we put in front of you a draft, regardless of where it was sourced from. We've had 2 weeks to determine, using that draft, what is our consensus
1 week,
document.
1 week.
And we're still no
Fine.
closer.
1 week.
Well, we had last week's meeting and tonight.
Yeah, okay, so that's 1 week.
And we had, that's 2 opportunities we had to look at.
Well, for one thing, last week, we just got it at the meeting, so we had no opportunity to review it. We've had this week to review it, so this is the first opportunity, in my opinion, to discuss it. And we're discussing it, and I believe a great deal of it should be removed, because it's the town manager's self-evaluation.
No, it's a draft for us.
Okay, it's a draft for us, so just, let's fix the draft.
To agree or disagree with the statements that have been made.
I disagree with embedding the town manager's self-evaluation
We
in
can
the Board of-
reword this, we can spend weeks rewording this.
So the
It'll say the same
compromise
thing.
is to cite it. I
Right.
think that is the middle ground. If we say we want it embedded, and then, or Selectman Luck says that she would like it completely removed, but if the compromise is we leave it because we want it there, but we cite the source of it, I think that is completely reasonable to give and take a little bit so that we can have a product. And if it did come from another source, citing the source should
It
surely
didn't all
not,
come from another source.
but the parts that did, which is 2/3 of the document.
No, it's not 2/3.
It's actually, the town manager's self-evaluation was 220 words. The composite consensus paraphrasing, the town manager, the composite paraphrasing of the town manager was 3,594 words, and the remaining BOS was 2,828 words. So 63% of the consensus document comes directly from the town manager's self-evaluation or your paraphrasing of the same.
And my paraphrasing could be considered my input, 1/4 of the information.
Well, I'm not considering it that.
Well, if you had time to count all the words, we had plenty of time to do the work.
We've done the work. We
We
have
didn't
our
do
opinion.
anything. All you did was sit here and say you didn't want to do it.
No, we've read through it. We understand it. And I
Embedded
think
in nothing except for a comma and a period.
if it doesn't come, that's insulting too.
It's insulting to Mr. Toll that he put all this work in and that's the only comment you had.
So because he put the work in and volunteered to make the consensus, then we can't contribute.
We've been asking you to contribute for 2 nights now.
We are contributing. You just don't like our contribution.
Yeah,
Your contribution is italicized a whole bunch of the document. Thanks.
Oh, this feels rude. I have a babysitter. If we can't discuss a compromise and we're going to make fun of people's interpretations of how to change a document, then I am going to head home. I'm sorry, good night. I'm trying to do compromise and be reasonable, and I think your data is extremely, I mean, you put time into your interpretation, and our interpretations are only correct if they go completely along with something
Not
else.
at all. Not even close to anything that I've said tonight.
And I
Thank you.
apologize, but there's a lot of time invested here, and I just think making fun of somebody wanting to cite a source where I'm so analytical and clinical is unreasonable. It feels a bit like bullying to say I would like to cite the source of something in the document I'm signing, and then to make fun of the fact I want to italicize something that actually should be italicized.
And I wanted to go through and do the work and point out what should actually be italicized.
But we have a more global interpretation of why we're uncomfortable signing the document, and going through it line by line and being here till 11 p.m. isn't going to change what we're asking for. And I know that in my heart, that if I'm going to sign it, then I think we should cite the source of where 63% came from. And so I'm just going to excuse myself because I don't think we're going to get to a consensus, and I think we're being highly criticized for having our interpretation, and there's not a point where if you make fun of the fact that I had edits that I wanted to give to a document, then what value is there in my time here this evening? And I know there's value in my time at home. So good night, and I'm sorry. I would be welcome to come to a meeting later this week if it's posted to sign the document. But we're spinning a wheel, and we're not listening to the fact that in normal documents and in normal analytical clinical things and in things that I would sign, sources would be cited. We were presented with information tonight that a huge amount of the document it's supposed to be our consensus of our 4 evaluations. The majority does not come from our evaluations. So it is not our consensus document. That's very logical information.
And we should be going through and pointing out what is not.
Compromise without being criticized and belittled for finding periods, belittled for asking to cite a source. When you take something from one place and put it in another, it is plagiarism. And I don't mean that in it sounds like a negative word, because it is, because if you take somebody else's words and put in a report, you cite it. We're simply asking to cite that of which we do not know. The highly detailed information that is very specific didn't come from any of our evaluations because it was beyond the scope of what we could know. I'm comfortable including it, but including it by citing the source.
And I wanted to go through and talk about these specific instances. You drew a line in the sand and said either do this or I'm going home. That's not compromise.
No, I'm just saying that I think I've reached a point where I'm trying to add value and look for compromise. We have one very specific interpretation that this information should be taken out. We want it left in. A very, very good compromise is leaving it in, but citing the source.
And we need
It's
to
the middle
point.
ground, and we're not willing to do a middle ground, and I'll stay through the conclusion of the motion. My motion was that we would sign this document so that we are meeting the deadlines and providing the product. And there's a key difference in what people want from the consensus document tonight, and we did add a summary, which is great. So the motion would be that we sign it with the addition of the fact that anything that came directly out of the town manager's self-evaluation, which was not one of our 4 documents, is just cited as that's its source. And that was seconded.
And I think unless we go through and point out what those instances are, that's a useless motion.
We know, because you can just layer.
You can go through it then.
Do we have the town manager self-evaluation here?
It's in the
online.
folder.
It's in your package.
All right, so do you want to just start going through
And then cite
and reading
those?
Wanted to do that an hour ago.
Well, if we're going to go through so that we can cite it, and that's what the compromise is, but let's finish the motion that's on the table.
Well, here's
Where's
the
the town
problem.
manager's self-evaluation?
You're referring to, I think we're combining a couple of things. The consensus part of this document is the 4 of ours input as to how well the town manager performed against a certain list of activities. We don't have to have a consensus of where the list of activities came from.
Everybody pull up the town manager's self-evaluation. Right?
Was it in tonight's folder?
Yeah. The goals and objectives. It reads exactly as what's embedded in the consensus document.
So what I'm asking you to do is say what in there is not an activity that the town manager performed.
And, we just keep saying the same thing. I feel that if it's in the town manager's self-evaluation, it has to be cited that this came from the town manager's self-evaluation. That's all.
Right, it's not disagreeing with the content or the facts, it's just
Or
saying that we
disagreeing
wanna
or
source
agreeing.
it.
We're just saying this information came from the town manager's self-evaluation.
Just seems very basic and simple. It doesn't seem like a bad thing to cite that a lot of the content didn't come from us.
Right.
It is coming from us.
Can we vote on the motion?
If, we're still discussing it, if there's an item in a document that the town manager wrote that said, I met with my staff, and I happened, as the person who put the consolidation together said, the town manager met with her staff.
Yeah, but you weren't supposed to be, it wasn't supposed to be a consensus of the town manager's self-evaluation
Right,
and our inputs.
right.
It was our 4 reports put
And that's
together
what,
for
and
one
that's
product.
what items like, at the very beginning and very end of each one, it has a rating, which is our consensus, and then and then it says, one member said this, one member said that. The rest of it is just a list of activities.
Then just identify the source.
I mean, do you want a paragraph at the beginning of the whole document that says a lot of the source of this came out of a document that the town manager provided to us?
Yes, and I want what she provided to be in italics.
See, that's the part I can't get behind, because some of the stuff she happened to write, I happen to agree with, it became my input.
And that means that 63% of the input is potentially for yours.
No, I get a fourth of the input, just like everybody else.
Well, 63% of the input came from.
No, there's a list of activities, that's not input. Then there's, I don't
We're just
get
going
this.
around and around. And we don't get where you're coming from either.
Citing a source is a super simplistic process.
Well, first of all, while I didn't count words, I specifically looked at everything and said, this is an activity that happened. It helps describe what the town manager did under those bullets. And then, on top of that, I went and said, okay, what did Ms. Adams say about it? What did Mrs. Luck say about it? What did Mr. McQuaid say about it? And what do I have to add?
Yeah, I definitely can see the section where
Well, that's
the Board of
that's the
Selectmen.
consensus.
So,
The rest is a list of activities. It's
so
no
then it
different
needs
than the
to,
bullet.
then it has to be identified as such.
Why?
Especially because it's things that we
Because,
didn't know.
because it's presented as a consensus overview document. It's misrepresented as a consensus overview document when 63% of it comes directly from the town manager's self-evaluation. All you have to do is identify what came from the town manager's self-evaluation. I would be happy to do it because I've already done it. I know how much of it comes from her self-evaluation. It's pretty simple. It's the first paragraph in 1 through 8, or 1 through 7, maybe 8. It's the last one, and it's really simple.
I think what we have is a compromise, and I don't think we should, it seems like the only solution then is that we agree to not have our own conviction. No, I mean, that would be the only way it would, and if what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me, that I would rather the document have been from only 4 sources, our evaluations.
Which, the numeric one?
Thanks.
And so citing that there's an alternative source other than the 4 documents of consensus, I feel like was good compromise. There is
I would be willing to
Understanding.
I would be willing to make a statement someplace in there that we could jointly write that says the source for a lot of the activities came from a document prepared by the town manager. But to call it the self-evaluation, the part of the document that she evaluated herself was not put in there at all. The only thing that was put in there was the list of activities. Now, yeah, I might have missed a sentence or two where she was supporting her thing. Let's take them out. But I'm not going to italicize 23 pages and say she wrote it, because she didn't, I did.
using her words.
Because it was a list of what she accomplished.
And then you have to cite when you,
No, I don't.
especially the stuff that's direct. The content that is directly from a report should be cited. If you're taking information directly from one place and putting it in another, it should be cited. The understanding in the consensus document is that we evaluated and the 4 were put together.
The only part that's a consensus is your evaluation of how she did against these activities. I tried to make it a complete document to say what activities she did under each of the 10 categories. Taking all that stuff out makes it a less meaningful document as an appraisal.
You don't have to take it out, you just have to identify what it is.
But also, if it's her appraisal and the information came for her,
It's not her
she knows
appraisal,
it
it's a
anyways.
piece of her appraisal that talked about her activities.
Then she knows that, because she provided it. So we don't need to provide it back to her is another reason to support removing it. We're giving her her own information.
Right.
Which is counterproductive to providing her our interpretation of her information. We're giving her back what she
It's us
gave us.
agreeing that these things happened.
But we each went through the evaluation and gave our input.
Right, and that's what we're trying to get a
And
consensus on.
and I think it's a great point that the town manager performance evaluation, it's insulting to give her back just what she wrote. She already knows it. She wrote it.
It really should be a composite of the work that we did, is so that she knows what we're presenting to her.
I don't know what to say. I just,
So we-
Well,
I
you
had
know,
I
if
had
the-
no intent other than to provide a list of what she did and to list all the input that you gave me on your evaluation. And what we should be discussing right now is our evaluation of a list of activities, not what the source is of that list of activities.
And this is not just a report back to the town manager, it's a report for the personnel file. Anyone in the town can read this, they need the backstory. Anyone on future board is gonna read this, they need the backstory and
They
understand.
can look at her performance evaluation. They can look at her self-evaluation. That's going to be in her file.
It's not the same thing, it doesn't carry.
It is the same
doesn't-
thing. That's the problem.
No, it doesn't carry the same weight as being in a,
Well, that's another reason.
what's another reason? It's being put in here, verbalized that these are the activities that took place, so anyone who doesn't know has that backstory, has that understanding, and understands that the Board of Selectmen agrees with it.
You know, it doesn't, all of what you're saying is, it doesn't change it at all if you identify the source. I see no reason for not identifying what comes from the town manager self-evaluation as exactly what it is. And I'm not going to change my mind. You know, we can sit here till 11 o'clock and miss the entire Bruins game. You know, it's not going to change. And I think it's a reasonable compromise to identify what comes from the town manager's self-evaluation in the document. If you're not willing to do that, I'm not able to sign it. We can agree to meet on May 21st. If the town manager and the board agrees, we can discuss it on May 21st. If there's no agreement on that, then I really don't know what we're gonna do. I can't sign this. That much I know.
I'm fine with the suggestion that we, if it makes you feel better, put a paragraph at the beginning. And if there are anything in here that, as Mr. Toll described, are more through the town manager's lens than statements of facts, we take those out. But a lot of them are statements of facts, and they should be presented as such.
They should be presented as a part of the town manager's self-evaluation, because that's what they are.
That's where I can't agree. That happens to be where they came from. But the town manager's self-evaluation is when she said, I evaluate myself to be meeting, exceeding, etc. It wasn't a list of her duties or what she accomplished. That's just information. And I moved it from one place to the other to make this a more whole document. And to be totally frank, sometimes when it came time for me to give my input, I said, you know what, I'm going to affirm what she said, because that's my opinion.
So you did that further down?
Yeah, as my opinion. When you can pretty much see that one member said this, one member said that, one member said this. When one sounds a lot like hers, that's my input.
Yeah, I only could identify 3 inputs. I wasn't.
I didn't put a lot of input in there.
Right. Oh,
Because
well.
I got accused last year of not taking consideration of anybody else's. I affirmed the activities that the town manager did because I believe she exceeded the 10 factors.
Then you should.
So I affirmed what she did.
But you didn't.
I affirmed it. Yeah, it's in there.
Oh. Okay.
And that's the point. If you italicize it, you're going to collect some of that.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you know how I feel.
Well, I personally feel that we've totally blown the objective of a performance review, subjecting the town manager to 2 nights of us bickering over something that's supposed to be a positive document that helps her understand what she should keep doing and what she might want to do a little differently. But I'll take as much blame for that as the rest of us, but I just think that's horrible, and I hope that the next board figures out a better way to do this. It worked fine for the last 3 times I did it.
But Mr. Chair, I think what's happening here is that we're trying to come to a consensus and you're not willing to make adaptations. And that's a stressful position to be in because each of us came into the process with something subjective and then we all have a different feeling. And citing a source is, if it is the source, and it just seems.
I would be happy to say somewhere up front or at the back that a lot of the listing of activities of the town manager came from a document provided by the town manager. Calling it her self-evaluation just happens to be where it got parked, because her self-evaluation wasn't the listing of what was accomplished. It was her opinion of how she did, how those activities matched up with what we wanted.
Wasn't it
Our opportunity to do the same thing is what we're working on right now.
Wasn't it called her self-evaluation?
It was in her self-evaluation.
Okay.
Okay? But
So-
it wasn't the totality of her self-evaluation. Her self-evaluation was that plus her assessment. This document is that plus our evaluation.
Then all we need to do is cite that. Every time it's embedded.
I'd cite it once in the beginning. I can't, you're asking me to redo the whole thing.
No, it's
and
very
I can't
simple.
do that anymore.
You just have to put italics.
Our job was for me to provide a draft and us to do this as a team. Obviously, we didn't meet that.
If we go through it line by line, it'll still need probably more edits than just to go through and cite the source. So, I mean, it requires.
Well, I can't do it individually. It has to, or nor can anybody else. It has to be a consensus of this group if you're going to edit it.
All I want to do is identify the source. Like I said, it's the first paragraph in just about every one, 1 through 10, and on one of them, it's the last paragraph. That's all you got to do. Like I said, I could do it tonight.
So there's a motion and a second. I know this is discussion, but honestly, we've been here since 6. The motion is to sign the document with the exception that the edit would be to cite the information that came from the self-evaluation. So to cite it as information from the town manager providing input so that we could put the facts in where we couldn't provide them ourselves. And so we're just citing from the town manager's self-evaluation. And I agree with Jamie, we could put a paragraph at the beginning too to say that in the self-evaluation, there was a lot of factual information about the content of the town manager's work, day-to-day work that we can't oversee. So that we're not simply calling it a self-evaluation and making it look unimportant or unfactual. So we can say that there's a paragraph, and you asked for the paragraph, so I'm saying yes, we have a paragraph that says a lot of day-to-day information that is not part of the selectman's role came from information and input from the town manager that was included in her self-evaluation. And then just simply cite the portions here, as we learned from the town manager, she accomplished this. As we learned from the town manager, she did that. And cite that she was the source of her own information. I think it makes it a more readable document. And I think it just makes it flow better so that we know that some of the consensus is using input from other sources. And that's normal and fine. Any report you write, if you take information to include in your report, you just cite it. You cite things that you weren't the source of. So that's my motion, was to just sign it, accept it, and I will amend it to say, add a paragraph to explain the self-evaluation had a lot of factual information in it, and you will see throughout it that we will cite information that didn't come from our reports. Everything else came from our reports. That would be the description, and then we would simply just cite the information of great detail that could not come from us. Just say the town manager has provided us that she was able to accomplish this, this, and this. And you don't even have to put it in quotes if you leave it as a paragraph. You could say the town manager accomplished these following things per her. You know.
As long as you identify it. You don't have to italicize it or quote
But I
unquote.
think it stays
to
very much
identify
the
it.
same, but you just remove the fact that this document doesn't come simply from our four inputs. It just makes sense to me. It seems simple to just, where it wasn't our reports, to say so. And
It's more honest.
but just, feed it in, because, there's a lot of information in here that when I would say to Heather on some things, I'd say, I don't know about employee interactions because I'm not involved in that. And so we would have times where I would say, it's hard to evaluate this question. So the input comes from her, that's fine, cite it. And that was my motion, was to just cite the source.
And I think I seconded it, but I will again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
So we're not going to reach consensus. Since we've been here
Well-
since 6 and it's not to be rude, I am going to have to decline keeping, if we can't do compromise, and we're going to, I just,
I just have a problem with the way the paragraph is stated. You kind of meandered and got into points where this is information that we can't verify or can't corroborate.
Also, you just have a problem with the way she worded the paragraph. That's the only thing?
I can be brought to agree with what you're trying to say if that paragraph sounds different.
All right, what's a better paragraph?
I make a motion.
Well, can I take a stab at it now, counterpoint it?
Okay.
And I feel like there's a lot of making fun of us for all of our time and effort, and I think laughing at us and everything goes along with the fact that we've been here since 6 o'clock. This is all volunteer dedicated.
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing.
And I don't take our time or our interpretations as something funny. And
Who
you
thinks this is
belittled my
funny?
finding of a period in quotes, and it's sad. It's, people are here through elections, which means we represent a choice, and we're allowed to talk and give input, and throughout this entire process, we're just criticized.
My complaint was I've been trying to solicit your input the whole night, and you've been given limited. I wanted much more out of you than period and a comma.
We've given a lot of input, Selectman McQuaid. We have.
Anyway, I was trying to compromise here, and then you just went on a tangent there. But if we added a note at the top of the page that said some items, factual items, statements of activities that were completed by the town manager came from a document produced by the town manager. These items are italicized.
Some statements of activities, what?
Some statements that activities performed by the town manager within this document come from a document produced by the town manager.
So you wouldn't say from the town manager's self-evaluation?
Correct.
No.
Why not?
Because they are, while that was the title of that document, it's not her self-evaluation of herself that's coming through here.
And why have things in there at all that didn't come from us?
Because my argument is that these are factual things that happened. Mr. Toll could have dismantled and rewrote that so it didn't sound like it came from the town manager's own statement. But there still be true facts that any one of us could agree to.
And hopefully not muddying the waters, I did probably miss a sentence or two, because the one you pointed out where the town manager in that one after she met with her people had a kind of an opinion, we should strike that sentence. I missed it. And had we 3 hours ago gone through it, we probably could have got rid of the 4 sentences that did that. But the rest of the document happened to have been on the same piece of paper as her self-evaluation, but it was a statement of activities. It wasn't her evaluation.
Well, you could have fooled me.
Am I supposed to get insulted by that?
I'm just saying it was labeled the
No,
town
I
manager's
didn't know if we were, I
self-evaluation.
didn't know if we're getting sensitive again.
So is that,
So some statements of activities performed by the town manager come from a document prepared by the town manager and will be italicized throughout.
that would be agreeable to me.
I could live with that.
Just as long as they're identified throughout.
Yeah, I think it
All right.
identifies it and it sources it, and I think it's largely what we were trying to accomplish, but I said it slightly differently.
So, can we see the document before we sign it? Of course, I think we'll need to do that.
Who's going to do it?
I can do it.
So we need to post a meeting prior to the elections?
I mean, we don't have to, because we can agree on doing it on the 21st. The
I
town
don't
manager and we agree.
to moving it to the 21st.
Excuse me?
I wouldn't agree to move it to the 21st.
And I wouldn't
It's-
vote,
Why not?
I wouldn't vote for that
It's a whole new
either.
board.
I wouldn't vote for that
Not a
either.
whole new board, it's only 2 people that'll be different.
Yeah, but one of the contributing members of the evaluation is no longer a member.
What time's the election on Saturday?
7 a.m.
7 to 5.
Could we post a meeting that, we could all go vote at the same time? We could post a selectmen's meeting 8 a.m. on Saturday. We could get the document, look it over and sign it. I mean, I don't know if we
Fine
can
with
Why
sign
can't
it.
we do this right now?
Because
Can we sign it?
Because it's not the document.
You can't sign that of which doesn't exist.
It won't take long to go through and pick paragraph and say italicize that.
It
But where
won't.
would the document be that we're signing?
Someone have a hard copy, so circle it.
And we have to write up this paragraph and put the paragraph in it.
you already have them listed out, Phyllis? Which ones do you think they are? Are we skipping past the goals? You said you were fine
No,
with that?
well, okay, we can, goals can contain that, but, so, and one, individual characteristics, that starts with Ms. Lemieux.
Do you want to just delete, that was the one with the sentence that was, oh, never mind, so this is different. Sorry.
Down to other day-to-day responsibilities. To there. Okay, and the next one, from the beginning to Casella. The next one, Ms. Lemieux, down to important updates. Number 4, from the first sentence, the whole first paragraph. And number 5, again, the first paragraph.
Down to basis.
Yes. Number 6, the whole first paragraph, down to next steps.
Can you go back to 4?
4? Uh-huh. Do we skip 4?
No.
What'd you get in 4?
Yeah, how far did you go on that one?
And where did you start?
So guess it, probably the department heads, probably not that first sentence.
Right.
So then Heather continues,
And end with litigation?
expensive litigation. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
So are we on 7 now?
6 went from the
Down to
first
next
paragraph
steps.
down to next
Yeah.
steps.
7 starts with Ms. Lemieux, and it goes local economy, so it's really the first. And,
Now, just not to be a pain in the neck, but what's wrong with the first sentence in 6?
what's wrong with the
I mean, it
first
says
sentence
Ms.
in
Lemieux is
6?
often the primary contact with residents. That's not true?
Number 6? You want 6?
7.
7.
The first sentence.
I was just looking for what came from
Yeah,
the
you're trying to do it in
self-evaluation.
Yeah, I think, well, now that you've mentioned it, I think the first sentence, I don't feel like that came from her.
No, I didn't.
Well, I don't have it,
Right that-
I don't see that document on the,
It's in
Doesn't matter, that's my input. I would say Ms. Lemieux is often the primary contact with residents.
Go to number 7 in here. Nope. Oh, never mind. Sorry, it's the goals.
you're right, that's all I can find is goals. I can't find her evaluation.
Examples would include,
So we're stuck on 7?
well, I'd leave the first sentence out myself, because I don't think she,
All right, so then you italicized Heather listens.
well, let's take a look at it.
I can try to upload.
Yeah, because I don't have the evaluation. I just have the goals.
See, that's my point, though. Even if it's in the evaluation, that doesn't mean I didn't put it in as my input.
Didn't we just agree to do this?
Yeah, but there's certain part, that's why I didn't want to do it as a blanket. There's certain parts, like Ms. Lemieux is often the primary contact with residents, that I don't believe is subjective at all. I think it's a fact.
It comes from a self-evaluation. It comes from the
No, it
document.
happens, I wrote it. How do you know where it came from?
That's what makes this so difficult.
That's what makes this so difficult.
And I think we're
7.
compromising by letting you do large chunks, but not all of large chunks.
So in number 7,
So we're at 7? So it ends with the local economy.
well, I'm trying to figure out where we begin, too. Because
She definitely talked about the dumping trash outside the donation bin.
Yes, indeed. So maybe starting with examples include?
I'm okay with that.
I recall that because I enjoyed some of the comedy that the resident added to that ongoing. You may have missed it on Facebook, but the trash bins do like, there was a resident that would do a daily update and
Oh.
take a selfie
Oh.
with it and brought some like awareness with some lightheartedness to that issue.
So number 8 is again the first paragraph. From when putting together the budget to years. And number 9 is
Whoa.
Trying to speed
multiple
read that one.
years.
See, I think there's one where other members had quite a lot to say about that, and I think that
Which one?
number 8. Well, I think that when we say, when putting together the budget, the town manager's goal is to create the budget that balances the needs of all departments, given the limited resources, I don't believe that's italicized,
Why?
because it's a statement I would make.
Yeah, but you didn't.
How do you know?
Because you embedded, because it was cut and paste from her document.
But it still could be my statement.
Yeah,
That
well,
was my I didn't bring my review.
you probably should have articulated that below. In number 9 is different because it's the last paragraph.
Mr. Toll stated that was his input,
What?
the last paragraph of 9.
Well, it was hers also.
Yeah, well, I affirmed it.
But it's cut and paste from her
What do you
self-evaluation
care where it
document.
comes from?
Oh, boy.
That's the point.
So here's a
We're
compromise.
trying to cite the source.
On 9 and 10, or in any, we cite the source with the italicized recommendation of Selectman McQuaid. Jamie, if you'd like to add in ones where you'd like to say there is a member of the board who agrees with everything above, or something like that.
Get into that, you can have me on there.
So
too.
that we can add in that it's more meaningful than just her evaluation because it spoke to you and maybe was a part of your evaluation. So ones that we're italicizing by nature of them coming from the self-evaluation, if you feel that that takes away your input that you were intended to have in there, we can maybe add
Hold on a
an extra sentence or two in terms of like you add the quoted areas, you could say,
Oh, hold on. What number was that?
9.
9?
9 is the last paragraph.
because then your input doesn't get lost if we add if you add something in to express the importance of that content for you.
All right, the entire last paragraph. Ms. Lemieux is very conscientious.
Yeah.
Is mine, from my input. So it's not italicized.
But it also wasn't her self-evaluation.
Well, it happens to be, but it's on my review, and now I guess I just made that a public record.
I mean, I use some language from hers as well in certain instances, but
Yeah, but most people put from the town manager's self-evaluation, they cited where it came from.
Oh, I didn't. Throw me out of school. Point is, on my review that I submitted, it said, Ms. Lemieux is very conscientious in her duty to relay important information to the board. This may include emails from residents, et cetera. If you want, I'll read every word of it.
And to be fair, number 9, there's 4
Are we not allowed
paragraphs.
to read our own evaluations in?
Well, he just made his a public record.
In number 9, there's 4 paragraphs. He's stating that one is his.
So we won't italicize the last paragraph of 9.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay. And back to 8, was there some discrepancy on 8 with italicizing? Had we reached a consensus on what came from where?
I had from the beginning to
Years.
Multiple years, okay.
And then on 10,
So 9, we haven't identified anything to italicize. We'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 10, it's the first paragraph again.
When needed to advance of meetings. And then the
Is it?
statement that Damon created will be at the beginning,
Yes.
after the goals, but at the beginning of the performance review and standards. These standards reflect basic expectations. And then underneath that, or somewhere around rating scale, where would we like to insert that?
Jamie, were you good on 10, or was that? There's a limited number of paragraphs, so I didn't know if that was yours.
The first paragraph is mine, when needed.
Happens to be just exactly what the town manager said.
Yeah, I affirmed it. That's what I believe.
Then let's italicize it and then say that
No, it was my input.
a selectman has the same input.
No, that was my input.
But if it's hers too, then it doesn't fit what we're documenting as italicizing.
Again, we each have a paragraph in there.
Can you just add one member wrote, and like the
Yeah.
other paragraphs?
Yeah, you could do
State.
that.
I'd like to put that, right at the- before when needed, we'll say one member wrote.
Okay.
Just going back and cleaning up my bubbles here, so. someone can-
And we'll add that then for 9 too, with the miscellaneous one member cited or wrote. The very conscientious one that Jamie wrote.
I did brackets to begin with them, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And where did we want to add our statement? Right above rating scale, right under the explanation. So somewhere like in here to add that statement.
Yeah, I think so, under
It has
part
to be
2.
prior to any of the italicized information, so it has
Yeah.
to be up front somewhere.
Part 2, I think.
So page 7, maybe,
Mhm.
towards the top.
Yep.
All right, now remind me what I said.
You said, note, some statements of activities performed by the town manager come from a document prepared by the town manager and will be italicized throughout. Yeah, right, if you can read my writing.
We have a clean page that we can sign in preparation of potentially accepting this document with the edits. If not, maybe we can generate one.
Can we get this electronically?
I don't think we can conduct that
Can we just
after,
sign this hard
outside of the
copy?
meeting.
You know, I don't know, because I mean, we get executive minutes electronically, so
We
there
do
is,
sign warrants by coming in.
you know what I mean, there are
Like, once
things.
it's prepared, could we come in and sign it? Probably.
Yeah, right.
Like when we're asked to come sign a warrant. Do you know the answer to that question? Like if we agree to it, but once the document's available, come sign it? Does that make
Yep,
sense?
I think as long as everything that was identified stated in the meeting.
And then stays
That'll be fine.
exactly as we make the motion to accept it.
Mhm.
Okay,
All
that makes sense.
Mhm. Good thinking.
As long as that, yeah, that, yes, we can come in and sign something that we agree upon tonight, I think.
You don't just want to sign this one?
Look it, we did it, maybe. We haven't said aye yet.
All right,
All right,
I'd make a motion to endorse the marked up town manager performance evaluation as I'm holding right now.
second.
Can we read into it the addition of the statement? I think we might have started a motion that had that on it earlier.
Yeah, I wrote it on there.
So it's in there, okay.
Do you want me to read it?
No, I think that's
Okay.
okay. So the motion is to accept the one we edited with the statement plus the italicized adaptations.
Correct.
Okay.
All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your efforts. Can we sign that? And then if you want to get a clean copy and stop by and sign it, I think that's just a formality. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Start.
Let me borrow your pen. I have two pens that won't, well, you can, yeah,
I got another one too. So
two pens that won't, their ink won't
What's today?
dispense.
sometimes I used to put pens like in here.
I know, this is like a shark and a snowman.
Sorry about that. All righty, let's try to, I don't think we have much left here. I'd also like to announce that as a result of the performance review that we already discussed, the new salary for the town manager is $129,765. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Current business, we have an MOU for Green Communities.
Yeah. Can we go to my town manager's
Sure.
report first?
Be happy to.
Yes. Because that's included in there.
Okay.
Okay, another reminder, dementia-friendly kickoff meeting this Monday, May 20th, from 6 to 7:30 at the library. The walkability and parking study, the public meeting to perform a walkthrough of the two focus areas, the Whalum area and the Lunenburg Center, will be on Saturday, June 1st at 1 p.m. with a rain date of Monday, June 3rd at 5 p.m.
What will be the meeting place?
We can meet here, I think we'll probably.
Town hall, meet
Yeah.
at town hall.
So Montechusett Regional Principal Planner Sherry Bean will lead the discussion and do the walkthrough of the two focus areas on the day of the meeting. Green Communities update and MOU for Green Communities Planning Assistance Grant. Last week, I met with Kelly Brown from the Department of Energy and Environmental Resources, Karen Chapman from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, and the contractor that has worked on all the town energy projects about the completion of the two remaining projects and the closeout process for the competitive grant the town received, totaling approximately $198,000. We expect to complete both remaining projects this month, and the state will come out to do an inspection of all the projects, and a final report at that time will be issued. During this meeting, we also discussed the next round of grant funding and possible projects the town could apply for. One project we discussed was if the town purchased the streetlights at the next town meeting, we would be eligible to receive the cost to convert those lights to LED in our next competitive grant submission. In order to assist the town in preparing an application for the next competitive round, I'm requesting the selectmen authorize me to sign a memorandum of understanding to have MRPC apply for the Regional Energy Planning Assistance Grant that would pay for the associated costs for MRPC to complete and submit the town's next competitive grant application. And this grant application is due May 24th.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What kind of money are we talking about if we buy the streetlights?
We would have to re-request a cost from Unitil. We did that back in April of 2018. And at that time, it was a fluctuation between approximately $88,000 and $126,000.
Ooh, that's a big fluctuation.
One cost projection included the cost of details, police details. The other did not.
Oh.
But that would have to be updated because it would have to take into account if any new lights were replaced, the depreciation costs of the existing lights. That's all a calculation.
Can we look at lights and see if there's any we can live without?
I would think that could be part of the process.
You know, I mean, because some may be in places where they don't really need them anymore. You know, I don't know, you know, okay.
A lot
great.
of towns during budget crunches and years back looked at shutting off streetlights, and that was the savings, but.
And so if we do that, we'd save a lot of money in electricity costs if we switch to LEG?
Yes, they projected we'd save about $30,000 a year.
Yeah, I remember the payback was relatively quick on that project.
So yeah, that'd be good.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for doing that.
So do you need an authorization to sign that
I
MOU?
do. Yep.
I'd make a motion, we endorse the request from the town manager to work with MRPC on the grant application.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Sounds like a great idea. Thank
Aye.
you. Aye.
At the Mass Toss meeting I attended last week, I spoke with our Mass DEP Regional Planning Coordinator, Irene Congdon, about a grant through Mass DEP that provides funding to municipalities to hire an education and enforcement coordinator to enforce private hauler recycling requirements. We could apply with the town of Townsend to split a part-time position with a grant amount of $30,000. And this would require 25% match from both communities, which if split with Townsend would be approximately $3,750. And this could come from our educational contractual amount we receive from Casella annually. This would not be a town employee, but a third party. In order to be eligible for the grant, the town must have comprehensive hauler regulations that would need to be adopted by the Board of Health. I've reached out to the Board of Health, and they have a meeting scheduled for May 20th, which Irene and I will be attending. The Board of Health would need to hold a public hearing as part of that process, and it would need to be done by June 12th. So the time restrictions
It's pretty
are
tight.
pretty tight, but it's worth the conversation.
Yeah, and this part-time person, do you think they would sort of work for a couple of years to get the thing rolling, or you don't really know, huh?
This is a new grant that I learned about. There's no, besides the 25% match, there's no requirement, you know, being a third party too. It's not a
Yeah, right. It's a great idea, and it's great that you could work with Townsend, just pay for half of that. Thank you for doing that.
Just to add to that, Townsend, they have comprehensive hauler regulations in place already, and their town council is Mead, Tellerman and Costa, Attorney Costa.
Oh, great.
So there's that overlap, so it's already had legal review
Oh, nice.
by our council.
An interesting note, side note, is that I think he did their town meeting Tuesday after our very long one, and theirs went till after midnight on a Tuesday night. So he had our Saturday, and then I'm pretty sure he was doing theirs Tuesday.
Long week.
Wow. He must be reconsidering his career choice about now.
Or just lost town government.
And meetings, Town Council will be holding monthly office hours on May 20th from noon to 4 p.m. I attended the Dementia Friendly Action Committee meeting today. Be attending the Dispatch Administration Board meeting tomorrow. I will be attending the Montechusett Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, meeting tomorrow, and the Board of Health meeting on Monday, the 20th. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We have minutes for March 19th. The warrants for the water commissioners in the amount of $7,908.50. This is the same one, different format. On accounts payable in the amount of $671,480.18. On accounts payable in the amount of $28,221.30. And a payroll in the amount of $784,878.50. Any action file issues?
Just two things I wanted to bring up. One was just the public comment at the beginning, and I couldn't picture exactly where that rock issue was, but what can we do to follow up on that? I mean, I don't know if we
I
could
would
reach out
first-
to Jack again
Yeah, I
and
would
just
first
check on
with
that.
the DPW director.
And then just to follow up, we had a brief conversation about it, but the request to look into the state intersection by Walmart in terms of adding green arrows or adding a solution to make heading in and out of the intersection less dangerous. Just knowing that there was a really bad accident and not wanting to have had a request to reach out to the state to maybe improve the safety of that intersection sort of slipped by until we're reminded again that it's dangerous. So the chief had mentioned there was a traffic meeting coming up. Was anything discussed about that intersection?
I would have to check with him.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, because I don't want to just bring it up as a concern from a mom whose child was involved and then just simply discuss the concern. So hopefully we can reach out to the state and see if we can add green arrows or something to make that a less complicated intersection.
It is very confusing.
It is confusing, and the fact that it leads to accidents and a really bad, I think 5 people were transported and luckily nobody harmed. I don't want us to take real action after harm. We've got a chance to improve it now, so thank you.
Any committee reports? Any department reports? Okay. Election day, as we mentioned earlier, is May 18th. Polling will be at the TC Passios building from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's this coming Saturday. Future Board of Selectmen meetings on May 21st and June 4th. Is there any public comment from the public?
And there's going to be a toll booth fundraiser for Boys and
yes.
Girls Club, so
That's right.
bring money when you vote.
Right.
But not related to voting.
Yeah, right, don't bring money for voting.
Susan Doherty, Director of the Lunenburg Council on Aging. I really didn't mean to stay here this late. But as it went further and further into the town manager's review, I just felt compelled to just to say this. As a department head, we talk amongst each other as department heads, and we hold nothing but respect for Heather. She does a great job. She gets 100% attendance at every single department head meeting, which is once a month. And I don't think that's ever happened before. And I just wanted to say that and thank you. And thank you for ending this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment from the board? If you'll indulge me, I just have a few minutes. I'd like to thank some people. I'd like to thank the employees of the town, particularly the department heads and the chiefs. Elaine Peterson, our executive admin, and especially the town manager. I'd like to thank my colleagues on the board over the years. Great names like Dave Matthews and Tom Alonso and Paula Bertram and Bob Ebersol. My current colleagues on the board, especially Damon McQuaid, who in addition to his work on the board, has also worked with me on the Building Reuse Committee and the Capital Planning committees and has become a good friend over the years. I'd like to recognize what I'll call an honorary citizen and tell a short story. Early on in my tenure, my partner, Joe McLaughlin, who manages the public access channel, was experimenting with YouTube and our ability to expand the town's reach in public access through YouTube, and hooked up with my sister, who lives in California, and gave her the URL for the YouTube channel. And she began watching our meetings, and I never thought it would grow into this, but it became a religion with her, and she watched all of our meetings. And it wasn't uncommon to hear from my sister Judy on a Wednesday evening or a Thursday and debate the finer points of entertainment licensing or pilot agreements or the Vertex study. I'd have to say she's probably as up on the happenings in Lunenburg as Dave Rogers or Dave Passios. She's probably as passionate about the town as Dave McDonald. And I'd love to give her the keys to the city. We have two problems with that. We're not a city. And from what I understand, in Lunenburg, not many people lock their doors. So I guess you don't need keys. But thank you, Judy. Thanks for your encouragement. I also like to thank the real citizens, the people that are part of our community. I thank you for your support and your encouragement, and it's been an honor and a privilege to serve you. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Nice job saving the whole thing.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
What's Judy gonna watch now?
I don't know.
I know, right?
She'll go back to Frasier reruns.
Oh, if she's really hooked, she'll keep watching.
Maybe.